Odoo, maker of business management software, with the goal of promoting growth and scaling businesses with efficiency. Learn more about Odoo at odoo.com. And from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
News happens fast. So for the next 3 hours, we've carved out a space to talk through it all. And yes, you're invited to weigh in. Jim Braude and Margery Egan are up next with Boston Public Radio, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and members of the GBH Champions and Beacon Circles. These most generous annual contributors lead the way in sustaining GBH as a public media resource available and free to all. Learn more at gbh.org/support.
Nova explores the revolutionary engineering behind Paris's iconic landmark, which ushered in a new age of global construction that reached for the skies. Watch Building the Eiffel Tower tomorrow at 9 on GBH2.
In preparation for winter, state ecologists have been building a hotel for snakes underground.
Doesn't look like much, but below the ground, the way these boulders are placed, those holes will actually create passages all the way down to the bottom.
In efforts to protect a key pest-controlling reptile, this particular pile of rocks could save a species. I'm Hannah Loss. You can find the rest of that story online at gbhnews.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Okay, the national nightmare is over. I'm back. I'm Jim Braude, ahead on the 11 o'clock hour of BPR, live from the Boston Public Library, as we all watch the National Guard in D.C. and Trump's threats to Chicago, Baltimore, and elsewhere. We're opening the phone and text lines to ask, when the president sends troops to the streets of our communities, what will we do? Is it going to be enough to express our outrage in a strongly worded op-ed or a tweet and fist-waving at a press conference? Will we do anything?
I'm Margery Egan. Then we'll talk public health and vaccines with Dr. Ashish Jha, Dean of Brown University School of Public Health and formerly President Biden's COVID czar. As brainworm survivor RFK Jr. creates policy based around vaccine skeptic pseudoscience, what role should states play to promote proven health science? It's all ahead in the 11 o'clock hour at BPR, GBH, and NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. President Trump has escalated his battle with the Federal Reserve by firing Governor Lisa Cook. This morning on CNBC, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick defended the move, saying Cook needs to leave the government if the allegations of mortgage fraud against her are true. Rohit Chopra worked with two independent federal regulators with the Biden and Trump administrations. He was fired by Trump earlier this year as the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. He tells NPR's Morning Edition that Trump's move threatens the independence of the central bank.
This is part of a broader trend to try and make these independent watchdogs essentially into obedient lapdogs. And I think when it comes to the Fed, the stakes are very high. Americans are really worried about higher prices in the grocery stores, and new college grads are struggling to find jobs.
Lisa Cook issued a statement last night refusing to resign. Utah is up against a deadline to redraw its congressional district map ahead of next year's midterm elections. NPR's Hansi Lowang reports Utah is one of several states with new redistricting plans that may determine whether Republicans keep control of Congress.
Utah's Republican-controlled legislature now has a month to come up with a congressional map to replace one they drew after repealing a ban on partisan gerrymandering under what's known as Proposition 4. Utah District Court Judge Diana Gibson ruled that repealing that ballot initiative approved by Utah voters violated the state's constitution. Other states are dealing with new legal challenges over congressional redistricting. A Texas map that the state's GOP-controlled legislature passed at President Trump's request to help Republicans is facing claims that it discriminates against Latino and Black voters. In California, Republicans are asking that state's high court to review a Democratic-led effort to offset Texas's map with a special election ballot measure that will allow a new map that could benefit Democrats. Hansi Lowang, NPR News.
The Democratic National Committee is holding its summer meeting this week in Minneapolis. NPR's Stephen Fowler reports.
DNC Chair Ken Martin calls Trump a, quote, dictator-in-chief whose agenda is, quote, fascism in a red tie. He also says Democrats have to do more to fight back.
Now look, folks, I'm sick and tired of this Democratic Party bringing a pencil to a knife fight.
Martin's been head of the DNC for 6 months. He says one thing the party should do is stop trying to win arguments over policy and politics and do more to win future elections. That includes talking about tariffs and their impact on prices and the unpopular tax breaks and cuts to social services in the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. Stephen Fowler, NPR News, Minneapolis.
Stocks are trading mixed on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow is down 3 points, the Nasdaq up 33. This is NPR News in Washington.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Mass Department of Transportation has received an additional $3.5 million in federal funding to explore the possibility of connecting train routes from Springfield, Mass. to Albany, New York. Daily Hampshire Gazette reports as part of a larger West-East rail initiative that has been picking up steam in recent years. It's the third such major federal grant the state has received in the last 2 years, beginning in 2023, with a $108 million grant followed by $37 million the following year. The grants were awarded from the Federal Railroad Administration, an agency within the United States Department of Transportation. And in GBH Business News, a Texas-based manufacturer of electronic components is closing its facility in Taunton. Airborne has notified state officials that it plans to shut down its manufacturing site, saying the closure would begin at the end of this year and be wrapped up by the end of 2026. About 86 employees will lose their jobs. The Boston Business Journal reports that Airborne has been around for over 65 years and designs and manufactures electronic components for applications in the military and defense, commercial air, space exploration, and medical and industrial markets. In sports, Red Sox and Orioles play Game 2 of their series tonight in Baltimore. The Patriots, as well as all the other NFL teams, have until 4 o'clock this afternoon to make the necessary cuts to reach a final 53-player roster ahead of the opening season. 72 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Sattva, committed to making handcrafted mattresses that help lull people to sleep and keep them sleeping soundly. More information is at SAATVA.com/NPR.
Welcome to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Jim Braude and Margery Egan. We are broadcasting live. Thank you. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News today at noon. We're going to be joined by Mayor Michelle Wu here at the library tomorrow at 11. Also at the library, Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us. And at noon at the library, Josh Kraft, who's running for mayor, is here as well. And on September 5th, Keith Lockhart will co-host BPR with us at the library. Great to see you, Jim. Welcome back.
Thank you, Margery. It's very nice to see you, too. You know, since you brought that up, actually, yesterday, just to get Jamie back in the spirit, I sent him a long email to see if he could handle it. And so we talk on the phone. I wanted to run this by you. Jamie says to me on the phone, you won't believe what he says to me.
What did he say?
I want you to know I've missed you. Now, do you believe that for a second? Well, look at him. He's humiliated.
I do.
It gets worse. You know what he said after that? And Margery has missed you, too.
I did miss you.
Does anybody believe either of these?
I missed you very much. I just missed you very much.
Notice he didn't say
work, Jim.
So in any case,
I really had to work hard when you were gone.
Okay, so we are back, actually briefly, since we're off Friday, too, that we're not going to be at the library Friday. It's a replay kind of thing.
Right.
And while we hope you've all been enjoying summer, there have been a number of alarming developments politically. Since Margery and I were last together, the Trump administration has canceled a nearly finished Rhode Island wind farm, costing the region 1,000 jobs, detained for 40-some days, and plans to deport an Afghan interpreter who spent his youth helping America fight the Taliban.
Horrible.
Emboldened Netanyahu in his killing in Gaza, rolled out the red carpet on American soil for a dictator and a war criminal, Putin, issued an executive order calling for federal charges against anyone who burns the American flag, a right already enshrined and protected by the First Amendment, by the Supreme Court continue to erase black and brown LGBTQ history. And those are just a few of the things we came up with in 5 minutes. So the lines are open at 877-301-8970. As summer wanes, Trump's more than flirting with authoritarianism. He's bringing it to our streets. Everybody knows in Washington, D.C. and L.A., he sent troops. He says Baltimore and Chicago are next. When the National Guard comes to Boston, and by the way, the acting head of ICE said they are coming. They're going to flood the zone, to use his words. When they come to Boston or to Worcester or to Springfield, are we just going to sit there and tweet about it and complain about how horrible it is? Or are we going to have anything like that Tiananmen Square moment where that courageous, unidentified young man stood in front of a tank from that government there? Our number is 877-301-8970. I'm serious. Margery and I talked a lot about this last night and this morning. What do we do when Trump decides to send troops to Boston, for example, as I said, or Worcester or Springfield, wherever he decides? Do we tweet about it? Are there press conferences? We're obviously going to ask Mayor Wu the same question at noon. What is your sense? I mean, I don't think this country, I don't think we responded adequately to any of the atrocities of Donald Trump.
Well, no. I mean, I hope we have people in the streets in Boston to protest this. I hope we do that.
Any reason to think we will?
Well, not judging what we've done so far. I mean, it is bizarre that the United States could end this starvation in Gaza. We could end it by stopping to support, by not giving support unconditionally to Israel. We're not. And we're seeing these stories on the news about that. I mean, it's incredible. Down on Rhode Island, you just mentioned this wind farm, which is like 2/3 of the way done, completed. They got all these foundations for all these turbines out in the water, 1,000 jobs.
And they have virtually all the federal permitting done too.
Shutting down work for 1,000 people, workmen that have been working on these and going out to sea and doing this. It's not an easy task.
By the way, just on that, for absolutely no reason, if you're against wind power, which is as moronic as Trump actually is, then you can say don't permit new ones. This one is almost totally completed.
Done. And as Bill McKibben said when we had him on last week, who's probably the chief environmentalist in the country in terms of what he knows about the environment, wind and solar is now cheaper. So you want to worry about your air conditioning bills this summer? You worrying about your heating bills this winter? Well, we're chumps because we could be transferring to clean alternative energy, and we're not because the tax breaks have been taken away.
Can we pick one other example? I wasn't aware of this young Afghan guy who's been in captivity, for 41 days? This is another.
By the way, his family,
working. Margery wants. Here's the deal on this thing. 41 days. He was one of the many Afghans who risked his life and his family's life by being an interpreter for the American troops there against the Taliban. And the way we pay him back is we incarcerate him for a month and a half in anticipation of his deportation. People hearing me? I don't think anybody's hearing anything. Even if you don't give a damn about this kid, tell me in the next war that the United States is involved in, when we ask locals to risk their own lives to help us with a promise that we will help them, who's going to be dumb enough to think that we're going to honor that pledge? I mean, I have to say, what has happened in the 2 weeks since I've been here to this country, hand of Donald Trump, is absolutely staggering. By the way, we know the mics aren't working. Bear with us. They're going to fix them in a couple of seconds. They're cutting in and out. They hear part of what we're saying. 877-301-8970. But we want to focus, I guess human nature is such, as horrible as the nightmare is in Gaza or Ukraine, it's far away. So we sort of delude ourselves to say there's only so much we can do. I think it is delusion. They're coming to Boston. The guy said on Howie Carr's show, they're going to flood the zone with people here, ICE and others. When they come, what do? I fear we as the people of this region do very little. We'll see what Mayor Wu has on her agenda.
I can't answer you, so don't keep looking at me.
No, you can. We hear most of you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, you hear most?
No,
you don't. Just occasional word cuts out.
And also he's going after all his political enemies. Breaking the bank of people that can't afford to hire a team of lawyers to fight after them. People the guy that was fired from the Department of Justice, the other guy that quit the Department of Justice because he had the to defend against the rioters that attacked police officers and in many cases injured them seriously. He defended those people. He's fired from the Department of Justice.
While all the attackers were pardoned.
Yeah, so they keep, Pam Bondi keeps making up this stuff about Abrego Garcia, who they're talking about sending back now to Uganda. They just lie.
Can we say one thing about Abrego Garcia before we get back to this? I'm so glad you mentioned this. Pam Bondi is doing what every person who works for Trump does, doing her sycophantic best to make him happy. She's in the Oval Office, and she mentions all the crimes that Abrego Garcia has committed, which make him too dangerous to be on the streets of America. How many of those crimes has he actually been charged with, Margery?
None.
None. None of the charges
that
she mentioned in the Oval Office were ones that the Justice Department has charged him with, which demonstrates, once again, that it's total fantasy that Donald Trump was upset because he sent the guy to El Salvador to rot and be... No, they're not working again. Should we be taking a break, or what do we do here? We should be taking a break. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. We want your calls. There are a lot of them already. We'll take more on the issue of what we do in Greater Boston when they flood the zone.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, writer Cullum Toybean. He doesn't care for sequels. He thinks they're a literary cop-out. But 15 years after he published Brooklyn, he has a follow-up, the novel Long Island. And best-selling author J. Courtney Sullivan has a new page-turner, The Cliffs. Set in coastal Maine, it's part mystery and part historical fiction. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass Humanities, presenting Voices and Votes, Democracy in America, a Smithsonian exhibition. In Ashby now through September 6th, in collaboration with Massachusetts 250. masshumanities.org. And Rockland Trust Bank, committed to helping individuals and local businesses work towards their financial goals by providing financial advice and resources. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
civilians living through war in Ukraine and Gaza, constant stress and noise can make it nearly impossible to sleep.
My mind never I worry about my family and everything happening outside.
Sleep deprivation in wartime. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Boston Speakers Series, continuing its 2025-2026 season at Symphony Hall with 7 evenings featuring Dr. Anthony Fauci, Tipping Point author Malcolm Gladwell, Ken Burns, and conservation photographer Christina Mittermeier. bostonspeakers.org. And the Museum of Printing in Haverhill, preserving the history of graphic communication from typewriters and presses to computers and copiers. Their expanded exhibit of rare and historic Bibles is now on view. More at museumofprinting.org.
Okay, a couple of minutes ago, top of the show, I said the nightmare was over. I was wrong. The nightmare has just begun. I have sincere apologies to people listening, more sincere apologies to people who were kind enough to come to a packed house at the library. Our system at the library is not working, so we have to return to Brighton. Will the show be on Zoom here, by the way? Yeah, Dr. Jha, Chris Cooper, Ben Shattuck, and of course the mayor will not be here in person, even though Dr. Jha is here already. We'll be able to see them on Zoom. We have our heartfelt apologies. This is horrible, particularly as I say to people who were kind enough to come on down. We're going to do an older segment from, I think, yesterday or something, while Margery and I race back to Brighton to continue the show, and I can't apologize enough. So thank you. I hope you'll forgive us, and I hope you'll be listening in about 20 minutes when we continue the show. Thanks so much.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan with Media Maven Sue O'Connell, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We are joined now on Zoom by Corby Kummer, Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, a Senior Editor at The Atlantic, and a Senior Lecturer at Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. Hello, Corby Kummer. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, I'm hoping you can hear me since my camera's not cooperating.
Oh, yes, we're fine. We're fine. We got you. We got you.
But your voice is alive, which is a good transition for us,
That's
Corby,
right.
into our topic of expiration dates on food.
Yeah.
And this is a big topic in my household, and it's hard to be right because it's so confusing about what an expiration date means, what a suggested use by means. And there's a story in the New York Times about do they really matter? What's your take on this? Can you explain to people the variety of messages we get about when our food allegedly is no longer edible?
You would see a tight smile if the camera worked, because it's almost impossible to find your way around expiration dates. They're mostly for the sake of manufacturers and retailers to rotate stock. They have almost nothing to do with actual food safety unless they are for infant formula and fresh meats and fish. That is where you should really pay attention to sell-by dates. Otherwise, there's an effort now to make a national law so that it's either use by or sell by. And you should pay attention to the best if used by date. That's about it. But mostly, Sue, you can win any household argument by saying these are done entirely for manufacturers to rotate stock and retail stores. And unless it's infant formula or meat or fish, you can pretty much ignore them.
You know, I had a bottle of Paul Newman's Italian dressing in my refrigerator, and I realized it was the only dressing I had, and it was like 6 months expired.
And it was opened. Was it opened or closed? Because it's also whether it's been opened or closed conversation.
Well, it was opened, and it was 6 months. I just thought I'd try a couple of droplets, and it was fine. And it was 6 months past the date. So sometimes some things go way past the date.
Yeah, condiments like relish, mustard, ketchup. They have a lot of vinegar and salt, which are preserving agents. Mm-hmm. So things that have a lot of acid and salt in them. You think of home canning pickles and such. It was a way of keeping cucumbers fresh throughout the winter and having fresh produce throughout the winter. So yes, you're absolutely right to use them, and especially oil, vinegar dressings.
Yeah, you have to give the taste test, I think. Although it makes you feel a little creepy, though. I was, the whole time I was eating that salad thinking, am I going to get sick from this? But, of course, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
You're not.
You're not going to get sick from it. But you do have to be careful of the other things that so don't just go crazy, Margery. Because I don't have time to fill in for the rest of the fall. Okay? So trying to get your act together.
Okay. So we've got all these wild supermarket battles going on now. Stop and Shop is lowering its prices, trying to do a rebound because they had been shutting down some places. We've got Market Basket still in an uproar, opening a new place in North Andover, celebrating that. At the same time, they're firing people, and lots of people are upset about their exile of Arthur T. DeMoulis, the man who probably made Market Basket what it is. And and meanwhile, you got other places like Costco keeping their hot dog prices at $1.50 and Arizona tea defying inflation. So give us the picture. What is going on here in the world of supermarkets that we should be concerned about? Oh my goodness!
Did we lose Corby? I think we lost Corby.
Did we lose Corby altogether?
Yep.
Okay,
so it is time for MIBA
So the
Hill.
stories that we're talking about, of course, and as many of us know, the supermarkets have a very
he's back.
Oh, he's back.
He's back. Did you hear my question, Corby? What's going on with all these supermarkets? All this stuff, prices.
Well, there's a lot of loss leader going on because the supermarkets are worried about their losing business. And so they have to try to get customers back through the door. And Stop and Shop is saying, hey, our home base is Massachusetts. We care enormously about this. But it's mostly just because food prices have risen dramatically. Customers are going away from Stop and Shop and other markets that haven't specialized on price. Where there are markets like Market Basket, like the new Aldi, which is a German-based chain, and Walmart, they take away and they suck away customers from Stop and Shop and traditional chains. So I kind of salute Stop and Shop for saying we're going to have a lot of loss leader items in the next couple of months because we want you back.
And the challenge, Corby, for the shopper, of course, with, the supermarket business is a low, small margin business, meaning, that it's amazing when you think about buying grapes from South America to eat and how little they really cost when you get right down to it. So there's money to be made the entire way, but it's pennies sometimes, and sometimes a fraction of a penny on profit for some of these items. So therefore, it also means are they cutting not just Stop and Shop, but are they raising prices on other items, especially the dreaded checkout aisle with the gum and the single serve of a Diet Coke or a bottle of water or any of those items where they actually, the front of the store, where you're making the biggest profit on, and they're likely to grab you there. So you have to be savvy about that when you're shopping, right?
Well, oddly enough, the press releases didn't talk about any concurrent price rises, now that you mention it. They just talked about, rotisserie chicken is the famous Costco loss leader.
Yeah.
And it continues to be a Costco loss leader. Arizona iced tea, Axios did this piece about certain loss leader items are sacrosanct.
Sacrosanct, yeah, because the aluminum, right? That should be going up because the aluminum from Canada, but the guy that runs it's keeping it right where it was. And Corby, so there seems to be not a big backlash against Market Basket at all for what is going on with Arthur T. Demoulas and this apparent takeover by his sisters. The North Ender store opened. There was all this celebration. There's no boycott. So what are you laughing at there, Corby?
This is the story that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Decades.
So, there's been a new version of Market Basket that opened right next to another one in North Andover. And they're all of the sisters who are now against Arthur T. They all showed up to smile and make happy talk with the loyal North Andover customers who also showed up and were perfectly happy to have a bright, new, multi-million-dollar market invested in their community. And the Globe singled out one lone protester who was trying to rally support for Arthur T. RT, George Simolara, 68 of Bill Recca. And he was out there with a trumpet and had made signs saying, "Save Market Basket, bring Artie back." And he was very disappointed that only people even paid any attention to him.
So, there's a lot of outrage, of things to be outraged about right now. I mean, it's sort of like, where are you going to go protest? Are you going to protest this family business that for generate what? We're now in 30 years of Market Basket Demoulas news. Can the outrage machine keep, or the outrage, I don't mean machine, but can the outrage keep going?
That's right. It's 2014, the halcyon days, before we could even imagine what is going on in the United States of America that was going to be happening ahead of us. Okay. All right. So what about this Dorchester Food Bank? This is a tough one.
The co-op, the Dorchester Food Co-op.
It's a really depressing story. And when we're talking about supermarkets, Stop and Shop has the huge market footprint to be able to absorb these loss leaders. So of course does Costco. Sue rightly pointed out, and they're probably jacking up prices on the other side that you're not even noticing while they're advertising their new big loss leaders. Dorchester raised millions of dollars in private funds and philanthropy to open a worker and customer-owned co-op. And it's a great idea. They started in the 70s. They were Cambridge Food Co-op. Alston. They were an essential part of life for a lot of customers who sometimes had to come in and work an hour a month, but you got lower food prices. And because it's so hard to run a food market with fresh food, Dorchester says we probably have to close. $2 to $3 million from fundraising and grants that they got, and it took them 10 years because it's hard to raise money, we know, are running out, and they can't meet their weekly nut and their costs. And it's just a kind of awful, sad story that big chains are driving out a locally owned, locally serving food co-op.
But I don't get what the difference is, though, because those big chains were always there, weren't they?
I don't think that there were that many near Dorchester because I don't know and I didn't see their business plans. Okay. But I don't think they would have planned to open next to a lot of competition that was likely to give them a big run for their money from the beginning. We watched Daily Table, the fantastic independent grocery store that was entirely around lower prices for fresh food and fresh produce, going for others. And Doug Rao said, we just ran out of money, but it was so successful it just couldn't continue. Enormously difficult to run a food market, which is why we're all going to be looking at each of the boroughs of New York City if Mamdani wins and tries to open a city-run food market in each of those boroughs.
Yeah, that was a big part of his campaign. But didn't everybody poo-poo that idea immediately? I mean, wasn't that sort of shot down, or you think he can actually do it? Because Wu was asked about it, and she didn't think it was happening here. What do you think about those city?
Anybody who runs a city and knows what it takes just to keep bus service going, and Mamdani is saying, let's have free buses. With what budget is what the main questions are. So, how do you run a food market? Especially, I don't think that it's a paradise in every borough to get fresh food, but it's completely unlike the rural food deserts where it's really challenging and really in need of help.
And folks, Corby, this is one of those things where it sounds like a good idea until you actually have to understand how the grocery business works. Right. And also the worst thing in the world is to have fresh food that you buy that goes bad. I mean, that's built into the business model because it happens. But at the same time, if you are already on this low profit or low margin, which you have to make a living even if you're a co-op, and you have leftover food because you're unused food you're going to waste because you can't get the customers in, that's a complete disaster, right?
Yeah, and then we get to the sell-by business. But reading the figures of the weekly costs for this Dorchester Food Co-op, a woman named Lita, who was the head of it, was saying that it generated $10,000 to $13,000 in sales each week, and they would have to triple that figure in order to survive, and that they need $500,000 to survive just to reach the time next summer when they could reapply for grants. Anybody who runs a nonprofit, which I do at the Aspen Institute, knows this sort of gap before you can apply for new grants. It's like sickening to find the bridge funds, and she's saying they're probably not going to find them.
Well, that's too bad. But Corby, thank you very much, as always, for joining us. We didn't get to talk about Robert F. Kennedy today, but
we will.
We're going to talk about him a lot tomorrow with Ashish Jha, who runs down for Brown University, who used to run vaccines during the Biden administration. I'm going to talk to him about that.
Thank you, Corby. Good to
Corby,
talk
thank
to
you very much.
Corby is the Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute and Senior Editor at The Atlantic and Senior Lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. Coming up after a quick break, famine has officially been declared in Gaza, and we'll talk with United Nations spokesperson Olga Cherevko about the situation on the ground and the global response. I am Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. She is Margery Egan, and you are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
For civilians living through war in Ukraine and Gaza, constant stress and noise can make it nearly impossible to sleep.
My mind never stops racing because I worry about my family and everything happening outside.
Sleep deprivation in wartime. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Boston Speakers Series, continuing its 2025-2026 season at Symphony Hall with 7 evenings featuring Dr. Anthony Fauci, Tipping Point author Malcolm Gladwell, Ken Burns, and conservation photographer Christina Mittermeier. BostonSpeakers.org. And the Museum of Printing in Haverhill, preserving the history of graphic communication from typewriters and presses to computers and copiers. Their expanded exhibit of rare and historic Bibles is now on view. More at museumofprinting.org.
It is time for Am I the A-Hill? You know the deal by now. We pick a real-life issue, at least we think it's real life, from Reddit or some other dumpster on the internet and present it to you. Today's dilemma involves a family living on the East Coast, that's where we are if you don't know, who eats a fair amount of lobster, like one of us. One of us is a big lobster fan, the other is not. And by the way, the one who is not a lobster fan, Margery, is not about principle. She just doesn't like the taste. Is that correct, Margery?
That is correct.
Thank you. The daughter in this family has just turned 15, and she's been stepping up in the kitchen, helping with meals. Recently, her mother has been trying to get her to help prepare the lobsters, which, of course, in most cases involves dropping a live lobster into a pot of boiling water. Thank you. That's very helpful. That was, I assume,
I like
boiling
that,
water.
actually.
Thank
There
you.
it is.
Exactly. The daughter just wants to enjoy the lobsters as she always has, cracking them open and then eating the meat after they've been killed and cooked. But the mother, Margery, objects, and she sets a new rule. Unless the 15-year-old daughter is willing to drop the crustacean into a pot of boiling water, no lobster for her. What do you think? Is the mom the a-hole for insisting her daughter kill the lobster she enjoys eating? You know, it's not as if the mother insists on taking the family to a slaughterhouse every time they have a hamburger, so why is she insisting on the lobster cruelty lesson? Or is the daughter being a bit of an a-hole for trying to live in a fantasy world where you can eat fresh lobster without confronting the fact that you have to kill it at home unless Market Basket boils it for you when you buy it at the place? 877-301-8970. Who's the a-hole? The mother demanding the daughter participate in the execution if she wants to eat it, or the daughter who says, I just want to eat it. I don't want to know about anything else. What's your answer, Margery?
Well, you know, you're the one that kills all the lobsters, and so why don't you say who the a-hole is?
I'm not going to do that right now because I want you to go first so that I can humiliate you. Is the
mother.
Is why?
The a-hole. Because, as you said, is she making them go to the slaughterhouse to look at the hamburgers? Is she sending them out to the meat packing place? How about pigs? Does she not, bacon? A lot of people eat bacon. I must admit, I eat bacon.
Oh, you do?
I mean, this is why the vegetarians have the moral.
They do. They're going to call.
Because they're not doing any of this stuff. They're eating a lot of plants and beans and stuff like that. But that's the problem. You know, if she sounds like a little bit of a, okay. You can't eat the lobster if you don't kill it.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Well, by the way, you'll be surprised. I believe the daughter is the a-hole. And the reason is,
really?
Unlike what I just said, I did take both of my daughters to the slaughterhouse before they had a cheeseburger. No, the mother is the a-hole. There's no question. But by the way, in all fairness.
Did you read about the crustaston?
No, what is the crustaston?
Well, the crustaston is supposed to get you out of this mess if you're upset about it. Now, it is expensive. It costs $3,400.
What's it called? The crustaston?
Crustaston, that's right. What you can do is you can, with the crustaston for $3,400, you can stun the lobster electronically before killing it or cooking it. And it supposedly makes it less horrible for the lobster because the lobster is just kind of stunned and doesn't feel it as much as it does when you just drop it in the boiling water. So that could be the way the escape thing. It doesn't do much for the slaughterhouse, doesn't do much for the pigs and the beef and everything else we eat. But the crustaston is there for $3,400.
Can I make a suggestion? Again, I don't want to tell you what to do because I'm going to sound ungrateful. Instead of sending me like bacon of the month every birthday, got me a crustaston.
Yeah, for $3,400. I don't think so.
Why don't you and the staff, your staff, why don't you contribute and do it?
And the other thing we found out, I was surprised at this too today, doing our extensive research on boiling lobsters, is that they are not monogamous. I thought they were monogamous.
No, I've been saying for years, as a former, a woman I used to know pretty well, I haven't seen her in years, that's what I meant former, I just haven't seen her. Not Harriet Heinemann, who is really smart, who told me, and she doesn't eat lobsters for this reason, they're monogamous. Not only are they not monogamous, we looked this up this morning, male lobsters sometimes mate with 10 women. You don't call women lobsters. Lobsters women, do you? Oops.
I think it's a female lobster.
10 female lobsters in one season. That's not monogamy to me.
Well, you know what else?
What?
In this very story, almost nobody's monogamous in the animal world. Yeah, it's only the prairie vole. You ever seen the prairie vole?
I don't know what it is.
It looks like a little mouse with a lot more hair. It's a rodent. They are the only ones that mate for life. Apparently. That's the key. That's what you got to do. You got to get the crustaston, and then you'll be all set.
Now, by the way, the other thing, I have to be honest about this because I know I want to get ahead of the criticism. I mean, in some way, I am the one who drops the lobsters into the boiling water.
I don't know how you do it.
And it's on. I'm sure it's not pleasant. But I mean, unless
you're boiled to death,
unless you can be
not the way most of us want to go.
By the way, what they say, I'm only doing this in the spirit of fairness because I believe in fairness. Because I don't believe they do suffer. I think they die immediately. Apparently, our staff thinks they have sound. Maybe that was it. Of one of the lobsters.
No,
once was dropped in the water.
The pot.
Yeah,
that's what they do.
That's a reflex. That's a reflex.
How do you know?
That's a. Okay, well, we are back live. This time in Brighton. Sincere apologies again, not just to the listening audience, but to the kind souls who filled the room at the library. We will be back tomorrow. Everything will be working. We are in Brighton, live streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Mayor Wu will be joining us in Brighton in about 20 minutes. And in fact, Dr. Ashish Jha, the COVID advisor to the former president of the United States and the head of the Brown School of Public Health, had to move a couple of cones, Margery, so I could park. And it turns out they were Mayor Wu's cones that Dr. Jha moved. In any case,
I'm a full-service guest.
You are incredible. And by the way, I take milk in my coffee, Doctor, if you don't mind. Right now, we're joined very briefly, sadly, by Dr. Ashish Jha. He's Dean of the Brown University School of Public Health, former COVID-19 response coordinator under President Biden. Doctor, it's great to see you, and thanks for your flexibility. I'm really sorry about this.
Pleasure to be here, and happy to do it.
So let's pick up where we were beginning to leave off anyway. Millions of us, when we got COVID, didn't get very sick from COVID because we had vaccines. I thought the Moderna that I got, the mRNA vaccine, was like a miracle. I hardly got sick. Yeah. But now we're not going to develop mRNA anymore under RFK Jr. Yeah. So what does this mean?
Well, first of all, this is it's stunning. It's just incredibly foolish of a move. Look, there's all this bad information about mRNA vaccines. I remind people about 70 to 80% of adults in America got an mRNA vaccine. The safety track record here is extraordinary. It is as safe of a vaccine as we have ever developed. So that's, to me, like, the facts still have to matter. They work. They're very safe. And so all this nonsense about mRNA vaccines being dangerous is that nonsense. It's an incredibly powerful tool, and we should be using it for flu vaccines. It'll make flu vaccines more effective. We should be using it for all sorts of other vaccines. And instead of doing that, we're actually taking a huge step back. I remind people in HHS that this was a vaccine developed under President Trump, under Operation Warp Speed. Why we would give up this modern platform that is really effective and safe, I don't understand it.
Haven't I read that it can impact going forward perhaps things like pancreatic cancer and cervical cancer and cancers that pancreatic cancer kills you pretty fast?
Yeah, so look, mRNA is a very, very powerful platform for all sorts of things. We've been talking about vaccines against infectious diseases. There is increasing evidence that we can use it for treatments of cancer. It's something that is going to make an enormous difference across a range of diseases. And while we're walking away from it, China's doubling down on it. Yeah. A lot of European countries are investing in it. What I worry about is not only will we not have it, but we will watch others develop these things, and then we're going to be at the back of the line to try to get these things.
I want to, every time we have John King from CNN on, he says, I'm not a mind reader, so I'm not asking you to be. But the thing you mentioned in passing, arguably the greatest triumph of Trump's first 4 years was the Warp Speed effort, and he's allowing his health guy to totally undo arguably his greatest accomplishment. One last question about vaccines, though. There was a meeting, I think in Providence. I don't know if you had anything to do with it, where a lot of the New England health people, except for New Hampshire, didn't show up for unfortunate and, to me, obvious reasons. Discussing what do they do in light of the poor guidance in many cases from HHS and some of their subsidiaries on the federal level. So is each state going to have its own deal about who gets a vaccine, who doesn't? And obviously that has an effect on whether an insurance company pays for the vaccine. What's going to happen come the fall?
Look, what states are coming to realize, and I've been talking to a lot of state health officials in New England, but really around the country, they're coming to realize that the federal government is abdicating its responsibility to kids, to adults, and they've got to do something. So what you're starting to see is you're going to see state-by-state guidance. Now, I'm still hopeful national societies, American Academy of Pediatrics, AMA, others put out national guidance. States can make sure that insurance still covers those vaccines. So there's a lot states can do here. It is a far less attractive option than a single national strategy but we're going to see state-by-state variation in vaccines. It's crazy that's where we are.
And the only reason a state would not provide fuller coverage comporting with what the experts, the AMAs, the pediatric associations say is because of Trump's sycophancy. If a red state leader might not want to upset Donald Trump and RFK Jr. Is that?
Yeah, that may be. Look, here's actually what I will say to you, Jim. I've been talking to a lot of state health officials in red states. These guys understand the value of vaccines. They want to do this. They hate the fact that they can't follow federal guidance anymore. My sense is most red states will still do it. Still figure it out, try to do it in a way that doesn't annoy the president, but it's complicated.
Just one thing. I said this before we went on the air. I feel like we're in sort of Alice in Wonderland land, where someone who is from my reading about him, he's kind of a disturbed person with a lot of crises, tragedy in his life, tragedy in his married life, all these weird things he's done, surrounding himself with a bunch of quacks, has no expertise whatsoever. He's a lawyer who went to law school. This man is deciding health care for millions of Americans. It's the height of craziness, it seems to me.
You mean sort of like the defense secretary or the head of the education department and those sort of things?
That's true.
Okay.
But, I think when you think about your children and vaccines or pregnant women and vaccines, it's maybe it's not scarier, but I find it very scary.
Well, the difference here, even with the defense secretary or others, is, RFK Jr. has very strongly held, often very wrong views on issues.
Yes.
Most health secretaries don't. Like, if you ask me, what were Javier Becerra, who was the health secretary for President Biden, or Alex Azar, the health secretary for President Trump before, what were their views on these things? They didn't have personally strongly held views. RFK does, and that actually creates a huge problem because his views are pretty much out of line with evidence, data, and science. Now, he has some views that I like, his views on pesticides, his views on nutrition. He's actually not doing anything useful on those fronts.
Right.
And then he has a bunch of views that are kooky. I mean, there's no other way to say it. They're kooky. They're weird.
They're wrong.
They're wrong. And those are the places where he's actually implementing his policies.
Speaking of that, one of the things I think is not talked about nearly enough, we're talking to Dr. Ashish Jha, head of the School of Public Health at Brown, is, for example, I mention fear all the time on the radio. Even if they don't come grab you, when you're not sending your kid to school for fear that he or she is going to be grabbed, morale. I'm sure you talk to a lot of the people you used to work with. I mean, the most extreme example is the shooting at CDC.
Oh, yeah.
Where a lot of the people say one of the reasons the shooter decided to come there is because of the lies being told by the President of the United States and the Director of Health and Human Services about vaccines. So what is the morale like with the experts, the lifers, who usually do make those decisions that you described a minute ago?
Yeah. Well, first, Jim, I will say that a lot of this is Secretary Kennedy and not so much President Trump. And President Trump still has been pretty good about vaccines when he speaks about it. He doesn't speak about it very much. He's got plenty of other things he's talking about. I'm not trying to defend the president, but I just want to make that point clear that much of this is coming from Secretary Kennedy. Look, the public health community undoubtedly feels besieged, under attack. It has created also a lot of resolve in a lot of people because we did not set out to do this to please a president or to please a health secretary. We do this work because we think it's the right thing to do for the health of the American people. And when the federal government begins to fail on that front, it makes it more important that we redouble our efforts. That's what a lot of us are doing.
And but back to what you said a minute ago, most of this is coming from RFK Jr., not from Trump. I think the corollary statement, with which I assume you agree, is, but Trump has the ability to tell him what not to do and what to do if he wasn't happy with it. So the buck does stop with the boss, not with the secretary.
Yeah, I'm not trying to absolve the president on this. The buck does stop with the president. I think my sense is he doesn't care about this topic so much. He's got enough other issues that he's focused on that he has said, and he said this in the campaign, that he was going to let Bobby Kennedy go wild on health. He has more or less left this to HHS. My sense is that once some of these things really start becoming political liabilities to the president, you will see the president step in. Right now, it's not, and so he's letting
one area. I'm sorry, you go ahead.
I was just going to ask, pregnant women during COVID, that people were worried about that.
Yeah.
It was found that it was very necessary to get these vaccinations.
Yeah.
It might be harm to mom, might be hard to the unborn baby, and the help to the newborn would be increased because of the COVID vaccine passing through mom to newborn. So he's talking about pregnant women not getting these vaccines.
Yeah.
My fear is that they may be able to get them, but they won't be able to afford to get them because they won't be able to pay for them.
Yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, if you're out there listening and confused about what should the guidance be, you know who I trust on this? The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology.
Yeah.
Like, these are actually people who take care of pregnant women, right? And their recommendation, which I think is aligned with the evidence, is that pregnant women should absolutely get the COVID vaccine when they're pregnant. Completely right. It's great for the mom. It's really helpful. And it's really important for the baby. States can make sure that they get paid for. So this is something states can do. States can just tell health insurance companies. And then here's the thing. Health insurance companies are delighted to pay for this because they don't actually want to see the COVID complications. So you're not getting any pushback from insurance companies. They're happy to do it. They just need someone to tell them to
Even
do it.
in red states, you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So let's go to something we can blame Trump for Brown, where you work, is another place where a deal was cut.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you in a tough spot, but let me put you in a tough spot. How'd you feel about that?
I was glad that the deal was done, and I was glad that that issue is behind us. Look, we were in a very difficult place. All of our funding was frozen. We weren't getting any new grants. And we are a research institution. We needed that funding restored. So I was not involved in the negotiation. I had nothing to do with it. In fact, the president of the university did that negotiation. Do I think it's great that we are in this position where universities are having to do these kinds of negotiations? I'm not happy about that.
So what's the consequence of that? So let's assume that somebody from Harvard says the same thing about what will ultimately be a deal there, or the University of Pennsylvania where I went, on and on down the line.
Yeah.
Everybody cuts a deal which, under those circumstances, and I'll use your words, the best, sort of the best deal. What's the impact of that on academic higher ed America?
Look, in the long run, this is very problematic. And I remind my friends on the Republican side, okay, you may be happy with what Trump is doing. Imagine a Democratic president who comes in and says, hey, if you don't let trans kids play in sports, you're going to have your federal funding frozen. If you don't allow for these other things, we're going to freeze your funding and then we're going to negotiate. This is not how we want to be running our country, that every 4 years we do these wild swings because of political reasons. So that to me is the biggest long-term issue here. There are real issues around anti-Semitism on campus that a lot of these deals are focused on. I mean, there are real issues that we need to address. This is not the right way to do it.
Well, also, if he really cared about it, I would argue he wouldn't have a dinner with a neo-Nazi.
Different issue.
Well, it was a different issue. We're talking about Ashish Jha.
At Harvard, which is not where you are, but they found the major problem at Harvard was Islamophobism, and were not able to protest about Gaza, and that's not been mentioned by the president. What about autism and RFK? He's solving it by September.
Yeah. I mean, what is heartbreaking about this is autism is obviously a real problem, and there are a lot of kids in America, around the world, suffering from autism. And there's been a 20-year effort to try to understand it, to study it, to try to improve the lives of kids. By saying things like, we're going to understand it by September, you create a lot of false hope. You create simplistic stories. You create a sense of blame. A lot of parents worried, was it the vaccine? Was it something I did? It wasn't the vaccine. Stop blaming parents. And so unfortunately, of course, he's not going to find the cause by September. That's, of course, nonsense. But the negative effect of that is going to be on the kids with autism and their families.
We mentioned this to you last time, but it's sort of the umbrella under all this. That not only is science funding at great risk, belief in science is at equally great risk. And I can't remember what you said last time when we broached it, but what do people like you do to ensure or to hopefully ensure that people don't lose their faith in scientific fact as opposed to science fiction?
So I think what I said I don't remember what I said last time, but the way I think about this, Jim, is we have got to do a better job of engaging people and listening. I think in public health, we have too often come in and said, here are the scientific facts and you have to listen to it. It turns out that's not the way the world works anymore. People get information from lots of different sources. The sort of respect for authority is not where it was. And, I'm fine with that. That means is I've got to do a better job of engaging people, listening to them, understanding their questions. And more than explaining the science is explaining the process. How is it that we go through figuring out, do vaccines work or not? Are they safe or not? I think if we can bring people kind of lift up the hood, show them the process, I think you're going to be able to restore that, but it's going to take time.
And you think people listen?
I find that people listen.
I should have said in the beginning, you're irregularly, or you're writing for the Globe now, right?
I am.
Which is another, if you can't get enough of Dr. Jha, which we can't, he's irregular. He's not a set thing,
I do
right?
about once a month.
Once a month, great.
Yeah.
You can find Dr. Jha. He just wrote a piece about mRNA. And last thing before you go, just to put this in context, when you're working for Joe Biden, 5 minutes before you were about to do something, were you ever told you have to go somewhere else and pick up cones so that the person driving you to the event? How many times that happened to you working for the White House?
I don't know if I ever had to lift up cones, but I will say this, which is when you work for the president, because the president is dealing with whatever crisis happens at the very last minute, everything shifts all the time. So you plan for things for weeks. You have people flying in around the country, and then 10 minutes before the meeting, everything changes. That's
You're
just the
sort of
reality.
equating that to Boston Public Radio. Is that what you're saying, Doctor?
This was fine. I just felt
like we flew in the cars from downtown to here, and we all made it. We didn't really make it in time, but we were close.
In all seriousness, we really appreciate your flexibility. Great to see you.
Thank you for the mess up.
See you very soon.
Thanks again to all the people.
Read him in the Globe. His pieces are spectacular and much needed. Good to see you, Dr.
Thank you
Thanks.
very, very much. We've been speaking with Dr. Ashish Jha, Dean of the Brown University School of Public Health and former COVID-19 response coordinator under President Joe Biden. Thank you again, Doctor, for coming in. Okay, we say goodbye to you on NEPM. Thanks for tuning in. But you can tune into the fabulous 413 starting at 3 this afternoon. The show continues here in Boston. Coming up after the new news, the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, joins us for the hour, taking our questions at yours at 877-301-8970. I'm Margery Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You listen to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Well, we were live at the Boston Public Library. We are now back in Brighton, but we're still here, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, I hope. Bye.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Margery Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Museum of Science, presenting the new exhibit, Perception Playground, which explores how your brain shapes your understanding of reality. Tickets at MOS.org. Don't miss the story of the struggle against airborne toxins and the hazy journey that led to the creation of the Clean Air Act on A New American Experience. Watch Clearing the Air, The War on Smog, tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 2 of BPR Live from the Boston Public Library. From noon to 1, it's August's edition of Ask the Mayor with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu taking your calls and questions. We'll ask her what happens when Donald Trump decides to triple down on his offense on American cities and sends the National Guard here. What will she do? What should we do?
I'm Margery Egan, and as we round the corner into fall, we're checking in on November's election. Wu's mayoral challenger, Josh Kraft, joins us tomorrow at noon. Have a question you'd like to put in front of Mayor Wu? Call or text us at 877-301-8970. And if you're in the area, come on over and ask her in person. Ask the Mayor is just ahead. BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump says he is firing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook amid allegations she committed mortgage fraud. NPR's Scott Horsley says Cook is pledging to fight back.
This is the latest escalation in President Trump's effort to exert more control over the Federal Reserve. It follows allegations by a Trump ally that Cook made false statements on a mortgage application 4 years ago. The attempt to fire Cook comes in the midst of a high-pressure campaign by the president to get the Fed to lower interest rates. By law, the central bank is designed to be insulated from that kind of political meddling. Cook said in a statement Trump has no authority to fire her, and she vowed to continue to serve on the Fed's governing board. Her attorney says the president's, quote, reflex to bully lacks any legal authority, and he promised to take whatever actions are needed to prevent what he called an illegal firing. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
A legal battle is underway over a bid to deport Kilmar Abrego Garcia to Uganda. The Maryland man has been fighting to remain in the U.S. with his family since he was wrongfully deported to El Salvador earlier this year and detained in a notorious prison. Months later, he was returned to the U.S., and last week he was released from a Tennessee jail to await trial on human smuggling charges to which he has pleaded not guilty. Yesterday, Abrego Garcia was detained shortly after an immigration check-in in Baltimore. A court stepped in to block Abrego Garcia's deportation while his case is pending. Maryland Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey calls on the Trump administration to halt its deportation efforts, saying Abrego Garcia has a constitutional right to a trial.
They charged him with these crimes.
They said they could prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. It's time to do it.
Abrego Garcia's case became a flashpoint in the administration's standoff with the judicial system over due process. The administration is threatening to re-examine federal funding to jurisdictions that don't end cashless bail policies. The District of Columbia, where Trump has now federalized law enforcement, moved away from cash bail decades ago, in part to address the disproportionate number of poor black people who could not afford to pay and languish in jail until trial. Alex Combs of member station WAMU says the system was reformed for other reasons as well.
They were concerned about people being released too early because if you did have the money to pay, you could get out. Whereas now judges have a lot more discretion here to hold people. Just 4% of all people released before trial last year were actually accused of violent crimes. And this has come with very few negative consequences for the city, if any. I mean, roughly 90% of D.C. defendants still show up for their court dates, and very few, we're talking something like 3% in most years, are rearrested while waiting trial.
Alex Combs with member station WAMU on NPR's Up First. The Dow is up 5 points at 45,288. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Burlington Public Schools says it'll cooperate with an investigation by the U.S. Department of Education for administering a survey to students that some parents say they opted out of. The department will determine if parents' rights were violated for asking middle school students to take a survey that asked about substance abuse and sexual behavior. Parents filed 2 federal complaints in April accusing the district of failing to honor their request. Sam Whiting is an attorney at the conservative Massachusetts Family Institute, which helped the parents file the complaints.
They want to see procedures put in place to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. And the Department of Education does have the authority to essentially mandate those changes if the school wants to continue receiving federal funding.
Burlington Public Schools says in a statement that it has already taken several steps to address district issues, including terminating the contract with the company that drafted the survey, hiring an independent consultant to perform an external review of the administration, and communicating directly with parents. In sports, Red Sox-Orioles play Game 2 of their series tonight in Baltimore. It's Day 3 of the U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York. And in the forecast, this National Dog Day. Sunny, mid to upper 70s today, clear and mid-50s overnight. Partly cloudy and mid-70s tomorrow, and it looks like we may have some rain rolling in on Friday. Who's a good boy? It is 73 degrees in Boston. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Margery Egan. Jim's been gone, but now he's back. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We apologize again to people that came down to the Boston Public Library. We had technical difficulties, but we hope to be back at the library tomorrow.
We will be.
Senator Elizabeth Warren is going to join us at the library, as well as Boston mayoral candidate Josh Kraft. And on September 5th, Keith Lockhart from the Boston Pops is going to co-host BPR with us, also, we hope, at the Boston Public Library. Hello, Jim.
Hi there. It is now time for the August edition of Ask the Mayor, the Boston Mayor, Michelle Wu. She's here for the hour to take your questions and ours. And obviously, there's a preliminary election on September 9th. And I was going to talk about the library, but I can't. Mayor Wu, thanks for being accommodating. We're really sorry about the inconvenience.
Happy to see you both, wherever we are.
Yeah,
Great
thank
to see
you.
you too.
Hello,
you.
I hear everyone at the library can maybe see us.
Yes,
anyway.
Yes,
they can.
We are on Zoom. So in our aborted conversation at the beginning of the show, we were talking about what might happen, Mayor Wu, if the National Guard comes to Boston. Todd Lyons, who's a big deal in ICE, I think he's the number 2 guy in ICE.
Acting director.
Yeah, he told Howie Carr on the radio show that he was going to, quote-unquote, flood the zone in Boston. What do we do if they? What are you going to do if they show up?
We are following what's happening in other cities around the country very closely. Unfortunately, we have seen a little bit of what it would look like if that should come to pass, and that this federal administration is willing to go beyond the bounds of constitutional authority and federal law to try to activate National Guards even when local communities aren't asking for it and don't want it. So there's an important legal piece to that, and we are reviewing all the court cases now and getting ready should it come to that. And we'd be working very closely with community members to ensure people know what's happening and that this is not something that is needed or wanted or legally sound.
But this may be an unfair question because you're the mayor and I'm just somebody who's lucky enough to live in Cambridge and work in Boston. Can you imagine the day that this happens? You do what you are legally empowered to do, and you see military vehicles driving around the city, National Guards people, potentially troops. And is there not a piece of you that feels that I don't have enough, I hate to use the expression weapons at my disposal, but you know what I mean, to make this not happen? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
There's the act of what that would mean, just the sheer violation of rule of law and the tenets of our democracy that we're built on. And then there's the strategy or the motivation behind that of why is this president trying to do that in so many cities all at the same time, creating this chaos. And it really feels that either it is just part of let's try to provoke something to actually turn this false narrative closer to reality, right? The constant push that cities are dangerous, cities are unclean, cities are horrible places because people look different from each other and might hail from different countries of origin at whatever point in their family tree. And we need to, because that's not true in reality, because we don't have real proof that we can point to that narrative that enables us to sort of lord it over them, we're going to try to create that by causing some kind of confrontation or provocation. Or the other agenda seems to be a real testing of the boundaries of how much power can be grabbed, how much authoritarian action will be tolerated at step by step in this country. And if it comes fast enough and strong enough and in the right places, starting with the right marginalized communities in certain ways. This never was just about immigrants in this country. This never was just about the trans community or LGBTQ residents or Boston or any individual community. Certainly this is meant to isolate and intimidate individual communities from speaking out. But at the end of the day, our democracy is based on principles that the city of Boston started. The reason why we have a democracy is because Bostonians decided we weren't going to let someone come in from high and come down and try to tell us how to run our communities and how to take care of our neighbors. That is why our laws are written how they're written, because we had to stand up once 250 years ago and take care of that situation. And those remain the laws today. I have faith that Bostonians and people in our communities will understand what the truth is, understand what the law is, and will continue to push me and all of our leaders to speak out forcefully and defend us against this slide towards losing our country.
You do think they're coming, though. When this is, you don't think that his threat to flood the zone, Lyons, the ice guy, is an idle threat. It's just a matter of time?
Look, I mean, there's a lot of rhetoric out there. The ICE director also said loudly and immediately after we announced our executive order that we would be using the Freedom of Information Act to demand basic information on who's been detained, why, where, what tactics. Yeah. And they said right away, oh, we're going to share all of that with you. It will be embarrassing for Boston to see how many quote unquote criminals we've taken off the streets. It's been 2 months. We've gone back and forth. We still have nothing from them. So on the one hand, it's impossible to predict. Tariffs are on, tariffs are off, tariffs are being negotiated. Everything is chaos and up in the air. And I think in this moment, however we got here, every mayor of every major city is having to take preparations for the National Guard coming in against their will.
We're talking to Mayor Wu. By the way, I never gave the number, 877-301-8970, if you'd like to talk to the mayor.
One more thing before we get to the phone calls, as Jim said, 877-301-8970. You're an alumna. You're a woman alumna. I think you are an alumna of Harvard, University of Harvard Law School. Alan Garber, the president over there in Harvard, got a lot of praise for filing suit and to fight back against Donald Trump. They seem to be negotiating now with Donald Trump on issues like admissions. But the other day, the university let stand a decision to take down a Black Lives Matter flag that had been up for years now in a professor's office or lab. They took it down, and they did take it down. What'd you think of that?
I'm not following all the ins and outs of every detail of what's happening. All I can say is that the pressure that's being directed at universities and law firms and every institution, every organization or agency of government is immense. And the problem is this administration. The attacks are in clear violation of our constitutional principles, freedom of speech, and the very things that make Boston great are what make our country great. That people from all around the world want to come here to send their kids to study or to get life-saving medical treatment. And the damage that's being done right now is not just something we have to survive in this moment. There are already going to be lasting consequences of this. So I hope all of our institutions will find it within their power to continue to do what they can to protect their communities and to help use the platforms that they have to speak out. Because this, I get asked the questions all the time too, right? Why would you, aren't you worried that now if you say something and other people aren't saying anything, then Boston will become even more of a target? I mean, first of all, Boston has been their target since before they were even sworn in this cycle, right? They have been attacking our police commissioner, city officials, our institutions from the beginning because we represent everything that proves how wrong they are on the law, on safety, on progress and the public good. And so I don't think we'll ever be out of their sights just because of the power of what Boston represents in the history of this country and the force that we have in shaping how people think about cities and what cities are for. But at the same time, I take my direction from our community members and particularly our most impacted residents. And as I did before going to DC, meeting with our immigrant communities and other community organizations and those who are closely connected to what's happening, we did that again before responding to Pam Bondi's letter. And I heard loud and clear from our community that they know what it's like to face bullies. They have had to do so in various shapes and forms throughout life in all sorts of systems that might not have been designed to put certain parts of our society first. And the way you have to deal with a bully is you cannot hide. You cannot just put your head down and hope that eventually they'll forget about you. It's going to keep coming back, and we have to stand up for what's right, and we have to speak out. Silence in the face of oppression is not an option.
But don't you think that just one more thing on this Black Lives Matter thing, it's sort of, to quote Tim Snyder from Yale, it's yet more anticipatory obedience in the hopes that the bully, as you call them, will treat you better. Is there any history with Trump to suggest that doing things that may please him, like pulling down this sign, get you anything? I mean, ABC paid him $16 million, and now he wants their license taken away.
Yeah, it's hard because I think so many who are trying to do right by whether it's their students or their clients or their constituents are faced with really horrible choices of short-term survival or being on the right side of history. And not every institution, not every organization feels like they have the resources to survive long enough to reach that long-term right side of history moment. And that's why it is all the more important, as I've heard from our community members, if Boston, if our city, who have represented freedom and democracy for 400 years, if we are not speaking out, who will be left to speak out?
Scott and Roslindale, you've been very patient, as everybody else has. You're first with Mayor Michelle Wu. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, thank you.
Sure.
I live on Peters Hill. I have a question about road construction, road repair. I live on Peters Hill. It's a string of one-way streets that are each 1 block long. So there's not a lot of traffic on these streets. And they've been in fine shape for years. Meanwhile, there's a street, I don't know the name of it, runs behind the Hilton and the Sheraton, and there's another hotel on that street that is like the Grand Canyon. It's so full of holes and ridges. It's impossible to drive down, and it infuriates me that we have a public street that serves 3 hotels that's in such terrible shape and has been for years, while you're fixing streets that are in fine shape. Why does that happen?
Thank you for raising this and giving me the chance to share all of the wonky details that go into street maintenance and street repaving. So the summary is we have 800 miles of roadway in the city of Boston. How we also maintain a measurement of what condition they're in at any given moment. You probably have to repave a road every 15-ish, 10 to 15-ish years, and then it can last longer that way, and then eventually we'll need to do a major reconstruction of it. But if we maintain paving, then it lasts a little bit longer until you have to do the full reconstruction. So the other main factor that controls the timing of it, in addition to the quality and how degraded the road already is, which is impacted by different factors like how often it is used, what kinds of vehicles drive on it, et cetera, is what happens underneath the road. So utility work is a huge, I will say, pain for me because that is not fully within the city's control, and often against the city's immediate interests when it comes to the timing of it. Utility projects are scheduled often years in advance. They have a system where they reserve, whether it's the sewer pipes underneath or wiring. Sometimes it's internet, sometimes it's other kinds of electrical work. And so all of the utility companies try to reserve it, and we do our best to coordinate. And occasionally there are moments where we can shift the timing a little bit here or there. But this is often booked years in advance, and it doesn't make sense to completely redo or usually repave a road when there is major utility work scheduled upcoming, because then it will get ripped up all over again and opened up and put back. We are putting a lot of resources to trying to ensure there's oversight when the roads are closed back up again, because often you can see sometimes it'll be cut open and then it won't be perfectly smooth when the utility company has a responsibility of fixing everything after their work. So we try to time major overhaul of different roadways with those utility projects so that everything works the more efficiently as it can. I can check on why exactly around Peters Hill road work happened. I imagine either someone called it in with or there might have been some routine potholes that were popping up, or it may have just been in the cycle. But we can try to find out more information if you're interested and report back.
Scott, if you are interested, if you stay on hold, we'll take your contact information and share it with the mayor's office. Staying in Roslindale, James, you were on with the mayor of the city. Hi.
Hi, Mayor Wu. My
Hello.
question is regarding the city's proposed 11,000-seat professional soccer stadium in Franklin Park. Why hasn't the city completed comprehensive environmental and traffic impact studies that are typical of large public projects like this one? Well, at the same time, you've demanded that those same kind of studies be completed for the proposed 20,000-seat soccer stadium in Everett. Is that a double standard?
Thank you for raising this. The short answer is no, because these are very different situations, but it's a really good point, and it's helpful to have the chance to get into a little bit of the distinctions between the two projects. So on the one hand, in Everett, there is a proposal for what is currently just an industrial site to be knocked down and then rebuilt as a completely different use of a large venue that will likely host not just soccer games, but other concerts and entertainment. Many seats, 25,000 plus seats, where the egress, or what we know so far of the plans of where the exit and entrances and access to that site, is likely going to be the Alfred Street Bridge over into Sullivan Square in Boston, where the MBTA, the Orange Line, picks up. This is a particularly notoriously dangerous stretch of road for pedestrians. It was not designed for anything other than manufacturing and heavy-duty vehicular traffic. And so we will need much infrastructure investment there just for that site to be accessible to the type of traffic that it will hold. It is also additionally right on the water. And so by state law, to remove it from the designated port use, there needed to be a certain set of state studies that would happen under MEPA and all of these other regulations that are going to proceed. By the act of the state legislature, the proponents, the Kraft family, the Kraft group, had to be required by law to negotiate with the city of Boston, because we will be a community that is so directly impacted by this change of use and addition of the venue. And to understand what the correct mitigation is, you have to start with the basics of what the impacts will be. If you switch over to White Stadium, this is an existing 10,000 seat stadium. It's been there since 1949, although it's been falling down for many decades out of its history. We know what pedestrian access to this site looks like. There are no safety issues in terms of walking through a beautiful wooded green park to access the immediate stadium, although there are certainly coordination issues and logistics. The larger Franklin Park area, including right at the Playstead, right adjacent to and immediately outside of the stadium, already hosts huge, large-scale events every year. We already get tens of thousands of people who come to BAMS Fest or the Puerto Rican Festival or other cultural festivals and big events that will happen. We have negotiated a mitigation package, essentially through the 300-page lease that is up on the city website with the Boston Legacy women's professional soccer team that controls for every little detail. We had the information on what the plans were. We had 60-plus public meetings on it. We had I think it was 7 or 8 different public agencies hold a public hearing and then had to take a vote to approve of a certain facet with more analysis of that project. So there's been more engagement, more involvement, and more changes to that project than any other public project I've seen in the course of my nearly 15 years in city government. It is and remains a public project that will be owned by the Boston Public Schools, and all the details are on the website if you're interested in learning more about where the negotiations landed with the legal language of the lease. The final piece, which will be codified as well, is the Transportation Access Plan and the Neighborhood Advisory Council that will oversee everything that happens from here on out. All of the neighborhood associations in the area, plus the zoo, plus the golf course, are all part of that group, so that not only are there promises made, legally bound in contract, but a steering, basically a way that we will ensure there's ongoing feedback to ensure that the language is being upheld.
James, thanks for the call. Speaking of all the details about White Stadium, you said, I think it was on BUR's morning show recently, that you won't have final numbers in terms of the city's obligation until later in the calendar year, which I assume means post-November election. Don't you feel you have an obligation to the voters to give them your best guess, even if it isn't written in stone, prior to them voting in that first week in November?
Yeah, I've tried to be clear about the standard way that city construction projects work, and how the city budget covers and ends up at the exact dollar amounts that go into each project. And it's the same process, whether it is a new fire station, like the one I was just nearby yesterday in Dorchester, Meeting House Hill, or a new library or a new park. A stadium, this Boston Public Schools property is following the same process, where there's a dollar amount reserved in the capital budget that is just as a placeholder, then community process to define the actual design, then a budget estimate based on the design that has come from lots of back and forth with community, reshaping the design, then actual construction documents and bidding it out. Every project proceeds this way, where we as a public entity are not in control of the costs that we have to pay. We follow state procurement law. We bid out the component parts of the work through a public RFP process that has certain parameters around how many days each piece has to be out and what kinds of bids we take. And then we always have to choose the lowest qualified bidder based on what comes back, based on what the market price is at that moment. That is the process that we're following for all the different pieces of it. Believe me, I wish that we could have been even further along in this process if we had not been slowed down by litigation over and over again in this process. We would have not only had a clear budget number, but also had the bids all the way out. So construction is well underway. We have a signed lease that is not just something that can be ripped up willy-nilly, in terms of responsibility to the taxpayers and following through with the process that we have established. We will and have been sharing all of the exact dollar amounts of the bids that have been coming back in each piece of the process, the foundation, the abatement work, demolition, all of that has come in at or even slightly below the initial projections in that budget. The next piece is going to be around, it will include some of the steel that needs to be purchased, which is going to be a significant escalation according to compared to when we were first on this, when we first did the budget estimate, and then the big chunk of the construction work.
But will you give your best estimate, understanding that many I's haven't been dotted and T's crossed, as you just described, prior to the November vote? Will you update as best you can?
We have been updating as best we can. Every time a bid comes back, we can update, and that is all public information.
And one last thing, your chief opponent has called it a stadium for billionaires. There's another stadium that really is for billionaires, obviously. You just mentioned in Everett. Very quickly, what's the latest offer that the Kraft Group has given to the city? Is it still the same $750,000?
Yes, and that 1.1% of the that $750,000 is 1% of the mitigation package that was reached for the casino right nearby, right in that same area, and the initial offer was not even negotiated with the city of Boston at the table. It was done behind closed doors with the city of Everett without any outreach or knowledge from Boston in that, and we're still there. We're still waiting. We know, it is what it is. We don't have the information on my fellow candidate's finances because he's changed his mind on his promise to share all of that information. We do have a sense from some legal documents that have come out through previous court processes that he is a pre-approved owner in waiting for the team, that it would present a conflict. And so there are a lot of questions that are outstanding.
Wait, repeat that again. Do you believe what in terms of Josh Kraft? What was the thing you just said a second ago?
There are some documents that have come out in previous court cases that involved the National Soccer League, MLS, and different teams submitted information on their ownership structures. He is on a list of pre-approved owners in waiting of the New England Revolution. And so although there might not be a current immediate direct tie, it is there. But who knows? We actually don't have the full information because we don't have the financials.
Just one last thing. You said you're going to update, and you have been updating the numbers. Do you have an update on? I think 91 million was the last number I've heard. What's the latest figure you'd update people in terms of the city's commitment? I
don't want to get this wrong, but so I can follow up if it needs correcting. But we have spent something like $5 or $7 million to date. That has included abatement, site preparation for demolition, and the demolition itself. That all came back at slightly less than, or depending on which item, or at budget.
We're talking to Mayor Wu.
Your opponent, the mayoral, or also one of them anyway, that's Josh Kraft, has said you are Trump-like, that you have been terrible on housing, and you're a big name caller.
I mean, that in and of itself seems like name calling, right? Boston politics is not for the faint of heart, and name calling is nothing new in my day-to-day job, believe me. So I don't mind it. And in fact, what I love about city government and what I love about city government in this city is that you can't go anywhere and fake anything before Boston residents. You can't even go to the grocery store and not get reminded of what needs to be done better, or what could be an opportunity for the city to step in and help make everyone's quality of life a little bit better. What I have found frustrating and frankly disrespectful to the residents of Boston is that we're not being presented with very many details about what the alternative plan is. There's a lot of tearing down of the work of our city team members. There's a lot of this is bad, that is bad, and I will be the first to hold us up to high standards. But I want to remind everyone also that government is about doing the big things that none of us can do alone. And so the only way to do those things on behalf of everyone is if we have everyone's feedback along the way. That makes it very complex to get all of the voices and decide when we've reached consensus. And it also makes it deeply personal, that each person's individual views really matter for this. We're hearing a lot of opposition right now from Josh Kraft, right? He's opposed to White Stadium. He's opposed to bike lanes. He's opposed to Donald Trump.
He said he's not opposed to bike lanes, in all fairness. His position
He's opposed to building more bike lanes. He wants to, whatever it is about it. In each of these situations, we have had democratic process and community meetings and plenty of times for every individual to come and weigh in. 60 public meetings, another 10 public hearings and votes. Not once did Josh Kraft show up to say anything about White Stadium when it was still a possibility to shape what direction we were going, or before there was a moment to ask for votes. Same thing on bike lanes. 15 years of bike lane meetings. I've never seen him at a single one of them. And even on Donald J. Trump, right? We see the opposition now. We see the framing of it, but not once in the first term of that administration or at any time during the last several years has there been a clear statement of where you've been and why. And so, Boston's a city where it matters to show up, and it matters who has been showing up and who's been doing the work.
Okay, before we take a break, we're going to have fun for 15 seconds.
Yes, we are.
Here is Roxbury's new edition performing their 1984 hit, Cool It Down. That's not working either. Oh, it is. Okay, why am I playing that, Mayor Wu?
We are about to make history in the city of Boston, welcoming New Edition home this weekend and marking their contributions to the city. They will be part of the HBCU Essence, HBCU Classic, and we will be dedicating a street in their honor and able to just fangirl.
Where and when? August 30th, but where and when? Where is this?
In Roxbury.
Where?
It is at the corner of, we're going
to find out during the break.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to find out during the break. We are taking a break right now. We're speaking with the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. She's going to stay with us to the top of the hour, taking our questions and yours. The number again is 877-301-8970. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We'll be right back.
Your home for trusted local news. GBH 89.7.
We dig deeper with insights and analysis you won't find anywhere else.
Providing the context you need to understand what's happening.
From Capitol Hill to Beacon Hill and why it matters to you.
GBH. Online at gbhnews.org. Streaming on the GBH app. And always on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Subaru of New England. This summer, you can take your adventures on the road in the all-wheel drive 2025 Subaru Outback. Subaru retailer locations at subaruofnewengland.com. And Cornerstone at Canton, an assisted living community with services designed to help seniors age in place, offering respite and trial stay options to help during recovery or when exploring new living arrangements. More at cornerstonecanton.com. And MIT Sloan Executive Education. You can equip yourself with the skills to lead in a rapidly changing world. Courses cover AI, leadership, and data-driven strategy. More at executive.mit.edu. And M. Steinert & Sons Pianos, the region's authorized Steinway dealer, presents the return of the Symphony Hall Piano Event, Friday, September 5th through Sunday the 7th at Symphony Hall, msteinert.com.
Welcome back to BPR, Jim Braude and Margery, and we assume you figured out we're not at the library. Our apologies, technical problems. We will be back at the library tomorrow. Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us, I think, at 11. I think that's correct. Boston Mayor Challenger Josh Kraft at noon. And September 5th, our co-host, a third co-host, will be Keith Lockhart, obviously, of the Boston Pops. We're joined by Boston Mayor Michelle Wu for the second half of Ask the Mayor, 877-301-8970.
Madam Mayor, before we get any further, you brought it back from the Dorchester Food Co-op, which I understand is maybe closing?
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to follow up on New Edition and the celebration. So it is Dearborn Street that's going to be renamed as New Edition Way. So we hope everyone comes out Saturday morning and helps to cheer them on.
Great.
But yes, absolutely. These are from the Dorchester Food Co-op. They had asked if I would help be the messenger in this case. And so it includes some of the local items on their shelves and a reminder that they have bulk purchasing, a membership discount, catering that is very popular, which you can, if you need something, 617-251-6675 for catering from Dorchester Food Co-op. It is a local effort that has been in the works for well over a decade, and they're challenging everyone to come and shop local.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
We're talking to Mayor Wu, needless to say. 877-301-8970.
So before we get to the calls, Mayor Wu, Sheriff Stephen Tompkins, he is facing federal extortion charges alleging he extorted $50,000 involving a Send marijuana company. Should he still be running the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department while he's facing these charges?
I was hoping for more information that would come out at the arraignment that just happened, but I'm still waiting for some more clarity here.
Yeah.
It's serious charges. Everyone deserves the transparency to know exactly what happened, but there seems to be some disagreement about what exactly did happen.
Well, as you know, Tanya Fernandez-Anderson, I believe that you said she should step down right after she was charged with federal corruption charges within hours of her getting arrested. So what's the difference?
You know, it's just a tragedy and very difficult for the community anytime we're having this kind of conversation, but it is about the specific facts of each situation. And in that situation, it did appear from the beginning that there was much more clarity about what exactly had transpired.
I should have said she was a city councilor. Excuse me. I should have said she was a city councilor. Okay. You thought there was more more information?
More clarity about exactly what had happened and where, and with the documentation behind it.
You don't think, Governor Healy said she wants more information also. There's been some criticism, I think in the Globe editorial page and elsewhere, that the relationship that Steve Tompkins has with leading Democrats to urge him to step down. Is there any truth to that in your estimation?
All of us understand that our jobs are bigger than our own personal feelings or our own relationships and individual moods or opinions, that these are seats that we have been designated by the voters and by constituents to take care of temporarily and do what we can in the time that we're given, and the very high standards come with that.
Gabriel, you're in Somerville. You're on with the mayor of Boston. Hey.
Hi, Mayor Wu. So I'm currently job hunting right now, and I noticed that a lot of City of Boston jobs require a residency requirement. Is there any talk on that changing anytime soon? So I know Boston's the only city where you have to be a resident on day one.
Well, this has been an ongoing subject of challenge, both from parts of our workforce and also from our community. I have supported the residency requirement because it makes a difference when people understand the community, are from the community, and are serving that community. And At the same time, we know that there have been many places within the city workforce where different unions, for example, have negotiated a collective bargaining contract that allows for residency requirements only to be in place for the first 10 years on a job, for example, with public safety, or in other cases where it doesn't apply. And so there's a little bit of a checkered set of requirements across the board. And we hear from many of our workers that it is difficult as housing costs are going up to be able to afford the city of Boston. We hold city jobs out to be not just a way to deliver services to our residents, but a way to invest in our own communities as well. And so that has been the motivation behind ensuring that city jobs are going right back into our local neighborhood economies and creating jobs and rooting people in the city of Boston. So we've been finding ways to try to tackle and ease the housing pressure. But I hear this a lot. And for now, what we have been doing is if there is a case where a person needs a little bit more time to, for example, relocate into the city, there's a mechanism to get a temporary waiver from our residency commission. If someone's family, for example, they need to have an income coming in from their job before they can have the funds to be able to get a new place to live in the city of Boston, that is all taken into effect. And so there are some ways where we can ensure that that transition is possible. But for now, the residency requirement is still in place.
Mayor Wu, I believe it's 10 years for police officers.
That's correct.
And I understand why that makes a difference. Why does that make a difference to have police officers in the city for the first 10 years of their employment?
We are actually, I recently visited our brand new class with Commissioner Cox. There was 100 recruits who just graduated last week from the academy and are now out and about and serving the residents of Boston. And I asked everyone to raise their hands just to get a sense of where different future police officers had grown up. And in this class, the last several years, we've had large classes, very representative of our city, and reflecting every neighborhood of our city too. So more and more through programs like the Police Cadet Program or other outreach that we've been doing, we have been able to recruit and attract local applicants to these jobs, which has been fantastic. But for some period of time, sometimes that wasn't always the case. And you would have folks sworn to protect and serve in the community who might not be as familiar with the ins and outs of that community. And it makes a difference in every job when you're there in public service, when you live and breathe Boston, when you are fully invested, when you have real skin in the game when it comes to understanding what's happening in our streets.
How many days left in your term?
I've shifted just to the prelim election, which is 14 days.
Okay, 14. When you look back, and by the way, the reason we asked the question is because we learned from Mayor Wu, she has in her phone the number of days left in her term. This is way early on. This is not a recent phenomenon. What have you not satisfactorily dealt with in your estimation that you were committed to conquering? That's probably a horrible verb, but you know what I mean, when you ran 4 years ago, Mayor?
4 years ago when I started, the city was in a really complicated place coming out of the pandemic. We did our swearing in all masked up and had the Omicron surge happen after that. All 48 collective bargaining agreements had expired with our city worker unions. We were doing overlapping national searches for school superintendent, police commissioner, fire commissioner, all at the same time for the very first time ever in Boston. So there was a lot of rebuilding and recovery that needed to happen. And it took a significant amount of time. Almost the first full year was filling cabinet vacancies and then filling the next level of leadership around each cabinet chief and then filling vacancies throughout our workforce where, because of the pandemic, city workers had been doing 2 or 3 jobs as positions opened up, but no one had the time to hire someone new into them. So we've really taken 4 years to build a solid foundation. I tell the team, right, sometimes we have to slow down in order to speed up, get positions filled, think about the processes that are in place, fix the working towards fixing different aspects of the permitting process, thinking about Article 80 and long-standing regulatory processes that really needed to be updated, and building new structures that we can address homelessness and ensure coordination around different industries within our city and investing in our small businesses. So I am excited and grateful at the progress that we have achieved, and especially with federal recovery dollars, a lot has happened that could not have happened previously. But we're now at the point where our workforce is ready to go, our systems and processes are at or almost at the point of being overhauled and simplified and made smarter and easier and more convenient for residents. And so we are truly going to start flying through some of the work that needs to be done. My goal is that Boston Public Schools should be the first choice for every family in the city. The oldest public school district in the country should be the best. My goal is that families who are thinking about growing in Boston won't have to give a second thought to whether they can afford housing and childcare and the experiences that enrich their kids' lives, that seniors will have everything that they need to stay in our neighborhoods. And so on all of these fronts, maintaining our position as the safest major city in the country, becoming the greenest and most family-friendly city in the country, we have a lot more work to do. And on the deepest challenges, like at Mass and Cass, or like tackling climate change as a coastal city, we have now built the mechanisms where we'll be able to really be up and running and get going.
But just to do the list very briefly, you mentioned schools, housing, Mass and Cass. How would you rate how well you've done? You explain why progress may not have been, I'm putting words in your mouth, so obviously feel free to correct me, that it might not have been as great as you would have wanted because of the stabilizing you had to do, for lack of better expression. How would you rate how you did do on those sort of central issues, schools, Mass and Cass, housing?
Given the resources that are available in the city and given the challenges that we have been facing, I am incredibly proud and grateful of the progress that we've made. And, you know, my approach is always, rather than just try to kick the can down the road or put a Band-Aid on something, I want to make sure that I'm not handing over a deep challenge to the next generation or having the same conversation over and over again the next time around, because it's a hard conversation to have. We've done and gotten right down into the hardest issues in the city. They are hard. They are complex. Many of them are national issues that cities everywhere are trying to figure out how to do on their own, like the opiate crisis. But we now have a clear roadmap in all of these areas, and I'm really eager and feel more confident than ever before that Boston has real possibility ahead of us and the chance to accelerate what we're doing.
Robert in Charlestown, thank you for calling. You're on with the mayor.
Hey, Robert.
Hello. Hi, Mayor. Glad to be on. So, as a someone who's been on the just past 4 months since submitting a permit to do some renovations at our property we've had for just less than 40 years in Charlestown, I was thrilled to see last week's announcement. You mentioned a few minutes ago about the kind of changes to Article 80, but the zoning emissions announcement last week of some, the first major overhaul of that statute, which I guess has been around since 1996. So my question for you, Mayor, is a simple one. When should a resident like ourselves, who are, in the midst of trying to start a renovation project, expect to see this, this policy change or this change to the rules really have an impact for our own renovation project, which is quite small and should, in our view, going into it, expected to be a layup as far as receiving a permit to do the work?
Thanks, Robert.
Great. Well, thank you. Yes, as you point out, there are many big picture things in addition to overhauling Article 80 for the first time since the mid-90s. We also have taken on citywide rezoning for the first time since 1965.
What's Article 80?
Yeah, exactly.
Article 80 is the development
Thank you
review.
for asking.
Sorry. It's the development review. It's the number of the within the zoning code that governs development review and approvals for the largest kinds of construction projects. So that certainly would not apply to home renovation or something of a smaller scale, but it is important as we think about how we grow our communities and what the expectations are. We have, I don't know if you saw, I was at 1010 Mass Ave at ISD as well last week, where we shared some of the work that's happening around permitting reform. Permits are a basic function of city government, but one that causes a lot of consternation, and we want to change that. So whether you are trying to build a new building, remodel your home, open a business, host a public event or do something else that might involve food and food safety. We want it to be supported and just get you to yes through our city agencies rather than put up one barrier after another. And so the first step has been getting everything online. We've had some really important, small but meaningful changes around how the fire safety approvals are given. For example, there used to be a requirement that if you would have a couch in a restaurant, you'd have to wait until the city's fire department's fire chemist came out and tested the flammability of that fabric directly. And now we will follow sort of industry standards and make sure that there's protection, but also simplified ways of doing that. We will have a way for every small business with a capacity of fewer than 50 people inside or less and who don't serve alcohol will no longer need annual renewals on many of their licenses. That will save a lot of money and it will save time, certainly. Our big area that we are tackling is, and where we hear the greatest pain points, is around housing and building construction. So you could hopefully give us some insight, and if you stay in touch with your neighborhood liaison, so Sean Breen is the neighborhood liaison for Charlestown. He can walk you through anything that you need for your project right now, but also please stay in touch with us as you get through it to share if there are places where it feels like something doesn't make sense or is, out of the usual flow of how customer service should go.
Robert, thanks for the call. Speaking of housing, as you probably know, one of the questions that's been filed, it's not yet on the ballot in 96, but could be, is yet another reimposition of rent control ballot question. Obviously, you supported rent stabilization. The self-important legislature decided they knew better for Boston than you did, and the city council did. Do you support this rent control ballot question?
I feel very... I am a little stressed at the situation because the on-the-ground specifics matter very much for each city. And what makes for good housing policy in the city of Boston is very different from what works on the Cape or in Western Mass or in other places. And so here we have a specific one-size-fits-all proposal that's been put in place of capping rents at basically CPI inflation, right? That is
5% max CPI or the 5, yeah.
And that is stricter and lower than what the city of Boston had put forward. We spent a long time analyzing this, convened a task force that included real estate, academics, community members, studied Boston, studied the country, and ours was at CPI plus 6% with a maximum cap of 10%. So there's a little bit of a difference between where we ended up at. We passed that through the city council the first time something had passed through the council, and it didn't go anywhere at the state house. Now, so, so what I'm saying is that this ballot initiative would not be what I would have supported for the city of Boston in the specific language. Now, is it a forcing function? Maybe this is the only mechanism. There is such need and such hunger for help on housing and help not getting displaced from communities that our residents have helped build, that this may be the way to force some legislation or something like that. If, deciding policy through ballot initiatives is using a hammer, and it's never the best way to get to the nuances of any policy. Doing it through statewide legislation is always the most reasonable, detail-specific way. And frankly, I would have suggested putting on the ballot to let each and every community, you just remove the ban overall on cities having anything to do with rent and housing policy, and then let each city put in place through their own democratic processes, through the oversight of their executive branch and legislative branch, what works for that community. That would have been my ideal. I'm going to have to figure out what to do about this because this may be the only shot for a while as well. Once something is on the ballot, either way, you can't put it back on for a significant period of time. So I haven't yet thought about that, and I have to see if I'll even be around after November to think about it more.
Very quickly, we only have like a minute or so left, but why has it been so difficult to increase the amount of housing in Boston?
We are a land restricted city. We are very developed. There are limited places where there's just open, the seaport and what used to be parking lots that then quickly became the South Boston Waterfront and Innovation District, and now Seaport was one of the examples where there was remaining land. There might be a few other areas, Suffolk Downs or parts near Alston or maybe way down in Hyde Park where there are some places where that can happen, but it's largely infill urban redevelopment. And labor costs are high, land costs are high. It's a very desirable place to build. We hold our companies to high standards and affordability and climate resiliency, and those are all important because we have decided as a community over many years that we will not see profits happen on the backs of workers or at the expense of affordability. And that means that one of the best ways we can help lower the costs is by simplifying processes, speeding up the time. That's exactly what we're trying to do at the city with zoning reform and many of the other ways that we are trying to just take a look at regulations that have maybe added to the costs instead of delivering affordability.
I've never heard, we only have 30 seconds. I never heard you say, if I'm around after November.
I'm knocking on wood.
How hard was that for you even to say?
No, I'm very superstitious.
Oh, you are? I didn't know that.
If I'm watching a basketball game and things are not going right, I remember what it is, so I won't do it again.
Do you have special socks?
Okay.
Anyway, I want to remind everyone that November is not the only important moment in the city of Boston if you care about what happens in the future of our city. September 9th is a preliminary election. It makes a big difference. There's mail-in voting that you can do right now. Early vote starts August 30th, and come out and vote in person September 9th. Make your voice heard.
Good to see you, Mayor Will. We'll see you after the prelim.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presence from the Dorchester Food Co-op.
And thanks for coming to Brighton, by the way.
Yeah,
really
thank
sorry.
you. It was kind of a messed up situation. So many people came to see you, and they're still there waiting to see you. Thank you, Mayor Will, for being with us. We'll see you again in September. And her main challenger, Josh Kraft, will join us tomorrow at noon. After the 1 o'clock news, The History of Sound, a new film based on Ben Shattuck's book of the same name. We'll talk with Shattuck and Academy Award-winning actor Chris Cooper next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH in the Brighton studio. I'm sorry, not at the Boston Public Library today.
Support the news that drives you. Donate your old car, truck, boat, or other used vehicle to GBH. Visit our website at gbh.org/vehicle donation for more info.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Newport Mansions, presenting the 20th Annual Newport Mansions Wine and Food Festival, September 19th to the 21st at Rosecliff. Seminars, tastings, and a dinner experience with Chef Marcus Samuelson. Tickets at newportmansions.org. And American Repertory Theater with Passengers, a blend of cirque, music, dance, and superhuman skill. The New York Times writes, extraordinary acrobatics provide gasps of delight. amrep.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of BPR, live from the Boston Public Library. Around this time last year, we spoke with author Ben Shattuck about his beautiful, painful story about a romance set in World War I era New England. It's called The History of Sound. Well, 1 year later, that book has been adapted into a major motion picture starring Paul Mescal, Josh O'Connor, and Oscar winner, Massachusetts guy Chris Cooper. Chris Cooper and Ben Shattuck join us live at the library to talk about the film.
I'm Margery Egan. Then a mother in Arizona is getting flack for posting a TikTok where she admitted to occasionally doing her kids' homework. We'll open the phone and text lines on homework. Not just a pain for kids everywhere, but for their parents too. Are there moments after hours of nagging, sports practices, recitals, when you've considered taking matters and that science project due tomorrow into your own hands? Confess your homework cheating sins next on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A federal judge has thrown out President Trump's lawsuit against Maryland's 15 federal judges over an order to block the immediate deportation of migrants who are challenging their removals. The judges rooted their position in constitutional tradition And U.S. District Judge Thomas Cullen concurred in deciding to toss Trump's suit. Cullen was a Trump nominee in 2020. The debate over due process for migrants, whatever their status, intensified earlier this year when Kilmar Abrego Garcia was wrongfully deported from Maryland to his home country of El Salvador. Now charged with human smuggling, Abrego Garcia is facing the threat of being deported to Uganda. The governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, is warning President Trump against sending National Guard troops to his state. He and others say it's not needed and would be illegal. During a meeting with his cabinet a short time ago, President Trump pushed back.
So the line is that I'm a dictator, but I stop crime. So a lot of people say, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. But I'm not a dictator. I just know how to stop crime. And you would think that Illinois would have such a problem with crime, such a bad governor. He should be calling me, and he should be saying, could you send over the troops, please? It's out of control.
At President Trump's orders, hundreds of National Guard members from multiple states are deployed on the streets of Washington, D.C. He says it is to fight a surge in crime. But like other major cities, D.C. says the statistics show overall violent crime in its city has actually fallen significantly. The Department of Transportation is threatening to withhold millions of dollars in federal funding from 3 Western states. NPR's Joel Rose reports the Trump administration accuses those states of failing to enforce English language requirements for truckers.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says California, Washington, and New Mexico could lose tens of millions of dollars in federal funding unless they adopt and enforce English language proficiency requirements for commercial drivers. DOT accuses those states of failing to disqualify drivers if they can't demonstrate English proficiency. The move comes after a deadly crash in Florida earlier this month involving a driver who made an illegal U-turn on a highway. Federal officials say the driver, who was born in India, was in the U.S. illegally, though California officials say he had a work permit. Duffy says California, Washington, and New Mexico have 30 days to comply. Joel Rose, NPR News, Washington.
The president says he's firing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. A Trump appointee has accused her of engaging in mortgage fraud. It is unclear if the president has the authority to fire Cook. She maintains he does not, and she has vowed to fight her dismissal. The Dow is down slightly, 3 points. The S&P's gained 6 points, and the Nasdaq is up slightly. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The federal government is telling EPA employees they are essentially no longer allowed to be represented by unions. GBH's Craig Lamalt has more on how that news is sitting with EPA workers here in Massachusetts.
Earlier this month, the EPA told employees they can't do union business during work hours. Lily Simmons works in the EPA's Boston office and heads their local union. She says another email came last week.
We got messages from our ethics officials that we're no longer allowed to do union activities, even outside of work.
Harvard law professor Sharon Block says by framing it as an ethics issue, the EPA is trying to scare unionized employees with the prospect of civil and criminal penalties.
When you're being subjected to the kind of attacks that this administration has launched against federal employees, it's exactly the time that employees most need to be talking to their unions.
An EPA spokesperson says the agency is following an executive order from President Trump. That order is meant to exclude many federal workers from union representation. Craig Lamalt, GBH News.
Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey calls the recent activation of the National Guard to Washington, D.C. a form of political theater that she says is disrespectful to the men and women in the Guard. Speaking with reporters yesterday, Healey said National Guard members from around the country are being pulled from their families and jobs as police officers and firefighters to head to the nation's capital for a non-critical mission. In the forecast, sunny to mid to upper 70s today. We are at 76 degrees outside our studios here in Brighton. I am Henry Santoro.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
This is where you speak, Margery.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was distracted.
Welcome to hour number 3
This
of
is
Boston.
working so well today, I should say.
Yeah, welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, I should have an announcement. We're not going to be able to go back to the Boston Public Library tomorrow either because we're still having technical problems. Just in time for Jim's return. We don't know if there's anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But in any case, he's Jim
Perfect
Browdy. I'm
symmetry.
Margery, and this is Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
You're also supposed to say, not at the library, but on our show tomorrow, Senator Elizabeth Warren will join us at 11. Unfortunately, that will be in Brighton. Boston mayoral candidate, we just spoke to the mayor, Josh Kraft, her primary opponent, will join us at noon. And on September 5th, we're trying something we've never done before. There will be 3 co-hosts of the show. Margery, me, and the BSO, Boston Pop's Keith Lockhart will join as a first-time co-host, probably a career ender for Keith there. So there's a story in Ben Shattuck's fabulous collection, The History of Sound, in which 2 men travel the backwoods of Maine, collecting folk music traditions brought back together after World War I, interrupted their initial beautiful romance as music students. That story is now a film, a beautiful film about the power of music and love, with Paul Mescal and Josh O'Connor. It's out in September. Here's a clip from the film's trailer.
Put your hand on your throat. Now hum. Feel something? Like a vibration? Sound is invisible.
There's more to that, too, but that didn't work either. In any case, there's another guy who is starring in that film, Academy Award winner and local guy, Chris Cooper, who was described as a national treasure in the review.
That was very impressive.
What are you laughing about? In the movie, not by your wife, actually, but by The Hollywood Reporter. And the author and screenwriter is also here. He's Ben Shattuck. Your work was described as jewel-like in that thing. And the only thing missing from their resume in that story is that they were chosen by 2 of the best women on the planet. On that, they can agree. Ben, you're not smiling about that. Why are you not smiling? She's right there.
I got a big smile.
Okay, Chris, Ben, it's great to see you both.
Yeah, she is.
By the way, the movie is just beautiful.
It is jewel-like. The movie's jewel-like.
Are you happy with this? It's your work.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I spend most of my days alone in my writing space with a cup of coffee and no internet in the little cave that is a writer's space. So it was like a great leap of faith to take a piece of work and give it to the actors, to the director, to the producer, to everybody else, and you sort of shoot it out into the world.
Had you read this before you were offered the part?
You know, I'm trying to remember the situation because we had a luncheon at a friend of ours who runs a bookstore in Newton. And I don't know if you
meaning you and Ben.
Ben and I and his lovely wife shared a luncheon, but we were in a straight row. Marianne and I were at this end, and Jenny well, he was at the other end. We never really got to meet because I think you were doing a reading at the bookstore. I think
Newtonville Books.
Yeah, you know.
But since then, we've had a couple of and I've sat in on a.
Well, you're in the movie. You know you're in the movie, right? You're in the movie?
Absolutely.
Okay, I just want to be clear. Okay.
You know, Ben.
And you were also. I'm sorry to be a sycophant. You were so.
Oh God, it was great. It was great
in this movie.
The whole thing was great.
Spectacular.
Great to hear it.
Well, very sad. Very sad.
Let's not give it away.
But anyway, you know, you just said something interesting about being in your room alone with your cup of coffee and no internet. Do you have your phone in there with you?
No, I leave the phone up at the house.
So,
it's in my great-grandfather's old tool shed that was my dad's painting studio.
Okay, well, that's one of the big things we talk about in terms of concentration in children and kids and being able to get away from your phone, get away from the internet so you can spend an hour or maybe even just a half hour concentrating on something. So I assume your concentration is remaining strong?
Yeah, I think entering an imaginative space is one of the greatest pleasures of life. And, you know, when I go through that studio door in the morning and I have nothing to do but enter a space of characters and of plot, it's incredibly enjoyable. And I think anybody who writes every day can relate to that sort of addictive space. It's like entering a dream world. And actually the first time that I walked in, because I did go to set a few times, I was in New York and they're filming in New Jersey, and I did go to set, and it was like entering one of my dreams, not like aspirational dreams, like a hallucination. Because it's, as a screenwriter, you write the scenes, you write the dialogue, and then you enter
Have you ever
into
done the
that physical
screenwriting
space.
before? Have you ever done a screenplay before? What were you raised your hand, Chris
I was
Cooper.
just going to say, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to bring it up, that I had heard in a previous interview that you were, Oscar brought you into the set. And here you've written about this scene, and now you're walking in this world that you created.
Oscar would be the director, by the way, for those who don't know.
I wonder about that.
Wait, before we do this, we jumped, because it's my fault.
Where we jumped to? We didn't get the story.
You should tell briefly, for people who haven't read the fabulous story, and obviously they haven't seen the movie, it's not coming out till September. Tell us briefly what the story is.
Two students at New England Conservatory, early 1900s. One's from Kentucky. The other is from Newport, spent some time in England. They meet around a piano in a bar in the South End, and the one from Kentucky recognizes some songs that the character David from Newport in England is playing, and that connects them over folk music tradition. And David says that he goes in the summer to collect songs as a hobby in the summer. And so they spend one summer together. And the story, I mean, if there is, the story's in the collection, I don't think this is a spoiler, but it turns out that those cylinders, when they finally, they record songs in wax cylinders, and when they finally return to the protagonist later in life, he realizes that when he was in his early 20s, he experienced the greatest love of his life. And if there was a thesis statement or sentence of the story, it would be that his life was an inch shorter than it could have been. That the greatest love of his life really did happen for a few months when he was in his early 20s.
And it is an incredible relationship.
And Chris, that's your role. You are the older person,
the older version
coming back.
Yes.
Yeah, with those cylinders and with those memories. Tell us about that.
Well, I get to. I think I'm one of the first voices, and as I'm the old man narrating, and I have at the end of the film, I have my last 10 minutes as the older Lionel. Man, when I got news of the possibility of playing this, I mean, this is exactly why I got into acting. It's not blue screen and explosions and car chases. I grew up with films from the 50s, 60s, 70s where it's human to human, dealing with another human being. That's what got me interested. And seeing this film met every expectation I had hoped for. The spareness of this film is just in many different ways, is astounding to me, and it's everything I expected, I hoped for.
Well, it is jewel-like, as I was saying before, and these beautiful little scenes and the love story between these two men. You just I mean, I know everybody said this, but it does kind of remind me of when I first saw Brokeback Mountain.
You okay with that?
And the love story between those two, you were just rooting for it in a big way.
Well, I think I think Paul Mescal. I've been following him through the different screenings and all, and his comeback. I think it is a little lazy to assume at the comparison. This is so different.
Oh, no, I was lazy. Sorry.
No, you're relating what some other lazy person had to say.
Well, because you don't see this portrayed that much in the theater.
Don't
frankly.
dig a deeper hole for yourself.
Well, no, you don't. You don't see this beautiful love story between two gay guys. You don't usually see it.
Can I reflect a
you
compliment
may reflect, please.
Back at Chris? So as a fiction writer, you're responsible for developing the characters, writing the dialogue, the setting, the interiority, choosing the verbs, creating the texture of the language that the story moves through. There's just so many pieces to keep track of. But when you're writing a screenplay, you have just two things, and it's what the characters are saying and where they are. What they're saying and where they are. What they're saying, where they are. And so it's almost like playing a song on a guitar with one string. It's so spare. And when I was writing a screenplay at first, I thought, oh man, this is so easy. I don't have to write a paragraph. I just have to do a paragraph break, the character's name and what they're saying. I don't have to do anything else. And then going on set and seeing them or seeing the movie, you realize, oh my gosh, all that work, all that descriptive emotional work is done by the actors.
Yeah.
And how it's just the story comes alive with the emotions that Chris or Josh or Paul flushed into the scenes. And there's this really like stunning moment. If a story can carry any universal truths that Chris and Paul both read in, because they play the same person just at different ages. It's a moment when they both collapse with emotion and they hadn't even spoken to each other. And there's a part at the end where Chris experiences a hit of emotion, and there's a part in the middle where Paul experiences emotion, and they both enact the same exact body language. It's like chilling to see that they had read the emotional tones of those characters. So
That's
similarly.
the voice of Ben Shattuck, who obviously wrote History of Sound and is the screenwriter for the fabulous movie that's coming out in September, which Margery and I have seen. He's here with Chris Cooper, is one of the leads in this, Academy Award-winning Chris Cooper, I should say, and who is a national treasure. When did you become a national treasure? Do you remember the date? Do you remember the exact date? Or
about 3 months ago.
That's a good one. Okay, I want to get back to you. Ben Mesrick, who's written about 400 books, was sitting there about a year ago. And I said, when you're writing, and obviously he writes a very different, much more, well, he writes a very different kind of thing. I said, are you thinking about this being a movie while you're writing the thing? And not only was his answer yes, he says, I've never heard anything like this. He ships every chapter, even when the book's not done, every chapter when he's done gets shipped to Hollywood. Because so they can start. I mean, you're laughing. I laughed too. I never heard it. And then was it hard for you, even though you were the screenwriter? You had this thing that was yours, and all of a sudden you knew, even though you're writing the screenplay, it's going to be other people's too. And by the way, I said I've gotten everything wrong today. Oliver, is it Hermanus? Is that is the director? I misstated his name too. Does a brilliant job. Were you worried about? You're laughing at me. Thank you. Were you worried about? It's okay. I'd laugh at me too. Were you worried about giving up ownership of something that was so beautiful? It was all yours.
The only reason I wrote the screenplay is, and I have any participation in this, is because I think I was so naive and green and didn't understand how the film industry worked at all. I mean, when the production company bought it, I said, yeah, sure, okay, but as long as I can write the screenplay. If I was more seasoned, I would have said sure and get an experienced screenwriter. So everything was a surprise. Everything was really a surprise. But I don't think I understood. I had this idea that directors were just talented events organizers, that created, you bring the DP together, you bring the actors together. Oh, we like it, we'll set it here. But they really are the painters, and your script and the actor's performance are all colors that they put together to make a distinct piece of art. And so only after I saw it, I realized, wow, it really is Oliver's vision. And I had one building block. So yeah, sure, it was hard at certain points. And I really think about screenwriting a little differently now.
You're nodding with some fervor at what he was saying.
Well, just thinking back at the film, the spareness of the apartment.
Yeah.
And Oliver picked up on that because I read that in your book, the story, the spareness. There's a bench, a table, one chair, two glasses. That just sets up such a picture. And again, going to that specific period, it just screamed to me brilliance. It just worked.
You know what I wonder, Chris Cooper? I mean, you've been in so many movies, Born Identity, October, American Beauty, all these movies you've been in. So you've been doing this for a long time. But when you go, you know what your lines are. But Ben was talking about being solitary in this room. I envision like the actors are in the middle, and then there are quite a few people around you. So it's a very almost. To concentrate there would seem to be so much harder because there's so many people around you and they're making noises and they're dropping pens and stuff.
Sure. So we had for the two locations that I shot my scenes in was one kind of a Charlie Rose surround interview situation that came later. Then my home, where we had a very small crew of people, and that helped because They were moving along really smoothly. I just had to stay loose. I had to stay loose, not get involved with their activity. You know, I came to do this scene today, and that's where my head is and my whole being. And it's really concentration and relaxation at the same time.
Okay.
For my day.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the business? I'm sorry, you had a question.
No, I was just going to say, but sometimes I'm sure you've been in situations where you had to do it over and over because there were a lot of people in the scene. I mean,
it just gives you the chance to do a better job, or give the director different choices. The same scene, but make a different choice. Change it up.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge gift to a director and an editor.
Yeah, that's where he's not just an events organizer, I guess, when he sees that and they can step in.
So, Chris Cooper, a lot of America wants to know how you feel about this. CNN is announcing that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are getting engaged.
Oh, my goodness.
Engaged. What's your reaction to this? I know you weren't prepared for this question, but do the best you can.
I adore the couple, the way they presented themselves.
So you're good with
There's stuff I don't know about, but I think it's lovely.
How about you, Ben Shattuck?
Oh, that is a response from an American treasure right there.
National treasure,
not a false step. National treasure. Yeah,
so,
yeah,
what's your
American
reaction to this, Mr. Shattuck?
Couldn't be happier. Yeah, and I did see that. That was that was catching my eye. I mean, I know I know I am actually on the radio right now, but I did just see that on the TV behind us.
Speaking of on the radio live, when Maureen Dowd, who I'm a colossal fan of, when Maureen Dowd mentions your book, even in one line in a thing, do people run out? And by the way, people should not just see the movie.
It's so funny.
Gotta buy the book. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You know, there's the book has gotten a pretty good reaction.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's a when Maureen Dowd mentioned my book, the boomer community in South Dartmouth all emailed me. My uncle, everybody emailed me. Like it's as if I just won the Pulitzer Prize. I mean, because Maureen Dowd, so wonderful. But it is really a generational hit. She hit a nerve, and people are like, well, yeah, Ben's made it.
That's right.
Speaking of
because
South
the only people
Dartmouth,
who would get in the home edition of the Sunday paper of the New York Times is people like us, Jim, the boomers.
Speak for yourself. Now,
you only have a
speaking
few
of
months
South Dartmouth,
left.
what gifts free of charge did you bring for Margery and me, and why'd you bring them? For those who don't know.
I brought 2 hats from Duval's General Store.
What is that again?
The oldest general store in America.
What do you
My
have to
brother
do
and
with
I own it.
You own it?
Yeah, we're co-owners, and we're currently looking for kitchen help. So
yeah,
might as well
Are we
use this
allowed to say
opportunity.
you're moving? Are we not?
Sure, yeah. For the school year,
Brooklyn.
we're moving to Brooklyn, New York.
Why would you do that? From South Dartmouth is so peaceful and calm and gorgeous. Brooklyn's a little bit more craze-y.
We'll be back. I mean, it's sad. It's a little sad for me to say
we're busy now.
We're going to be summer people in my own community, but that's just life moves on.
Okay,
Jim, don't forget. Marianne has lemon squares waiting for you.
Oh my God!
Yes,
and I'm reading her book. It is a riot. It is great.
Oh, good.
I can so identify.
Oh, we're bringing that up. Well, when is she next week?
Next week.
And Keith Lockhart is here. What do you think of the book?
No, okay. Which one are we talking
her new
about?
book.
Marianne's?
We weren't even going to ask her, but since
Marianne's
you brought her up.
crazy about it.
I don't care what she thinks. What do you think about it?
It's a mystery how she does it, and I don't know how you do it. How she comes up with chapters after chapters and totally entertaining. I don't know how she does it.
Yeah, I think she had a wild childhood. That's what I think. And we're getting it recounted in this book. It sounds like it was really fun to me. But I want to ask you a question, though, about the movie business. You started this before. You know, a lot of us, and I must admit, I often wait for things to come on television and I watch it at home. And I don't go to the movie theater anymore. And I always think I should be going to the movie theater. How do you feel about that, the home thing versus the sitting in the theater?
No, I mean, I grew up with... big screen.
Yeah.
Big screen is a big plus. And this, here I am a boomer, but this younger generation that's watching beautiful work on a phone is sinful.
Yeah.
I mean.
Do you think it's going to come back? Do you think it's going to last?
Oh, man. I pray it does.
Yeah.
I pray it does.
What do you think, Ben?
I think it's going to come back. Is that the question?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean,
communal experience.
Right. It seems like everyone's. It's a perennial alarm that things that people that things are going to go away. And, being participating in Duval's General Store and seeing that, like, oh, it turns out that people don't want to sit at home on social media all day. They want to just go to the cafe and have a conversation. Turns out that people do want to probably go to the theaters together. Yeah, I don't know what it'll look. Maybe it'll look a little different, but I don't think people enjoy just sitting at home watching something alone on a screen.
You can't react unless it's your partner or your kid or somebody. Yeah. Not enough people to react.
What are you working on?
Right. I'm working on a novel. Starts in 18th century Germany and ends in the Hudson Valley. I also just finished the screenplay of The Wind in the Willows.
Oh my God!
And a screenplay, a World War II screenplay, and I think it's going to shoot in France in 2027.
Yikes!
Yeah.
What are you working on?
Well, oddly enough, the week that Trump announced 100% tariffs on American films shot overseas, within hours, I was supposed to head to Spain to do my 6th film with John Sayles, having worked with John Sayles, but the money got pulled, totally canceled. So I have to wait maybe another 3/4 of a year before we can do it.
So specifically because of the tariff imposition.
Yes. And at the same time, we got news that 5 other productions, including a production that Charlie Kaufman, who wrote Adaptation, which I was very involved with.
You sort of won the Academy Award for that.
You did,
for those.
And his piece got canceled as well.
What did you just say, with which I was fairly involved? What did you just say about that you were fairly involved
in that.
Are you nervous about this movie coming out?
No.
Yes, you are.
I don't know. I mean, my job was done a while ago. And it was to write the screenplay.
Are you this
to hand off
calm
the
at
actors.
home? I mean, you are so...
Let's get Jenny on here.
You are so... Yeah, what's she do? Since we spoke about Marianne, what's her deal? We never do this about spouses, by the way, but only because we love both of these women. And
famous spouses
What's
here.
she doing?
She's filming in Ohio right now for a month.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a lot of my daughter and I time going to the ice cream. Just little buddies going around town.
Can I just say, I don't mean to end as fawning as I began. The movie is so incredibly beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
And you are so incredibly
Thank you, man. Thank you.
intense and beautiful in this role. Really got to check it out. Is there a date in September? Or is
September 12th.
September 12th.
Right.
Can't wait. Check it out. In the meantime, read the book, which is another incredible, wonderful time for you. It's great to see you both.
You know, I saw it at home on my computer, and I'm going to go see it in the theater when it comes out because I want to have that experience of seeing it in the theater with people around me reacting at the same time. I love that.
Yeah. Good to see you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very, very much.
We
have been speaking with author Ben Shattuck, the Oscar-winning actor Chris Cooper about the history of sound, which is a beautiful, is the overused word of the day.
But it is beautiful.
The jewel of a film, and it gets wide release on September 12th. You don't want to miss it. Coming up after this quick break, we open the lines to talk about cheaters, specifically parents who get a little overenthusiastic when helping their children with their homework and cheat. Where's the line between helping and hurting, and how are you navigating the AI creep this school year? I'm Margery Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
New Orleans' 9th Ward was one of the areas hardest hit by Hurricane Katrina. 2 decades later, this neighborhood is still in an uphill battle to recover.
This is not a third world country. This is New Orleans. No, we're only 10 minutes from the French Quarters, and the people that's here in the lower 9th Ward, they're still suffering.
I'm Elsa Chang, the ongoing fight to save the 9th Ward on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4. Here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds. New properties are added often. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov. And Babson College. You can learn to lead with impact and become a driving force for change. Babson's virtual graduate admissions workshop is on August 27th. Registration at babson.edu/gradworkshop.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan and Jim Browdy. We apologize again for those who came to the library or obviously we had technical problems. We will not be back there tomorrow either. Next week we will do our best and we'll let you know. Senator Elizabeth Warren will join us tomorrow in Brighton. Boston, that's at 11. Boston mayoral candidate Josh Kraft will join us at noon. We are off Thursday, Friday, and Monday, but we're back for good after Labor Day. And on Friday of Labor Day week, not only will Marianne Leone, who's written a great new book we just talked about.
Oh, my God, it's a
who happens to be
riot.
married to Chris Cooper, is going to be with us. But Keith Lockhart is going to be our co-host. First time we've had 3 co-hosts on the show, and we're really actually pretty excited about it. In any case, with a great return to school comes great responsibility. That is the responsibility of parents to walk the fine line, we've both done it, between helping their kids with their homework and just doing the whole damn thing for them so everyone can just enjoy a few minutes of quiet before bed. We are talking about cheating on homework. It's one thing, not the kid cheating, but we could do that too. It's one thing to walk your kid through their math problem at night, another thing entirely to do the worksheets for them. Not to mention the AI creep of it all. You're just having your kid plug their questions in the chat GPT. And how did you cheat when you were a kid? Did your parents cheat for you too? Margery shared I'll let you tell the story. Actually, you had a wonderful story this morning about some despicable behavior on your behalf. The lines are open at 877. You don't remember what you said this morning?
I do.
877.
You did too.
Well, we weren't going to talk about me. We're talking about you. 877-301-8970. Let me phrase this better than I've done so far. We want to know if you've contemplated or actually cheated on behalf of your student because you thought the homework was too burdensome or you wanted family time. And how did your parents deal with your homework when you were a mere ute yourself? The number is 877-301-8970. You can tell your story to begin with, then I'll tell mine. Mine is 10 times worse.
You're talking about my science project?
Yeah, your science project.
Oh, this isn't. I was cheating on my own behalf.
Well, it wasn't your parents, right?
I was not a very good science student, and there was my lab partner that the one we dissected the frogs with and the sharks with. She was my idol. Her name was Susan. I probably shouldn't say her last name.
I'll say it. Peppers.
It was one Pepper.
Sorry, one Pepper.
Yeah, well,
Susie Pepper?
Susan Pepper. But
I won't say her name. Let's not say her name.
She was a genius. She was beautiful. I idolized her, and we were supposed to do a science project together.
Susie Pepper.
Yeah, we procrastinated. So the night before the test, I go up to her house. Yeah. The project is due. I go up to her house, and she just created this whole science project because she was a genius out of whole cloth. And the next day we had to present it. And she just said, okay, just hold the pointer, and I'll tell you where to point.
Is that an exaggeration?
So I stood there with the pointer. She said, put it there, I put it there, put it down there, I put it there. And I don't remember the grade we got, but she created it. Yeah. And we were cheating. It wasn't, we had not spent 6 months working on this.
But that wasn't the parent thing. So let's talk about parent. When your kids were young, they're all 30-ish now, one's 40.
No.
You're not that kind of parent.
Here's what I did do. And because I used to write for a living, I would look at their papers and look at the grammar and help them with the grammar and help them.
So help as opposed to do.
I say that it's between you and me, not between you and I. Or correct the grammar, run on sentences, that kind of thing. The commas, that kind of thing. How about you?
877-301-8970. Well, I don't want to say. And by the way, our staff is asking, is Susie Pepper Margery's Harriet Heinemann?
I don't know.
No. Maybe.
I thought she was just the best.
Well, I didn't think that about Harriet. I mean, she thought that about me, but that's another story. I have to say, on rare occasion, with one of my daughters, I'm not going to say which one, the younger one, have attempted to do homework together, and it was literally like World War III.
Oh, yeah, they don't like it.
So, oh my God.
They don't like it.
They ask for help, and then, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I think the answer is we never help. It's like you. Help when it was appropriate. We felt bad for the kid, or it was something we wanted to do as a family that night, or wanted to take the kid out for ice cream or something. So gave some help, but I don't think ever did it. Now, and what I've decided to do, because my personal story of cheating is so much worse than Margery's pointing.
Oh, come on.
I'm going to try to get through the next 20 minutes without sharing with you.
Come on.
I did a horrible thing.
What did you do? What did you do?
I told you this morning what I did.
Well, tell us again.
Well, let me start at the end.
Okay.
When I was in, I think, 5th grade, I won the science fair. Can we just leave it at that?
Really?
Yeah. That's it.
And somebody created the science project for you.
It's possible. There are rumors. I'm not confirming them. That my uncle's, the superintendent of his apartment building, I'm not saying it's true, there are rumors that the superintendent of his apartment building may have worked a bit on the project.
Well, don't feel bad about this, because I can tell you that in the Brookline Public Schools, where all three of my kids went to school, you come into the science project in the 3rd grade or 4th grade or something, and somebody's built the entire reconstruction of the Brooklyn Bridge, or the Verrazano Bridge, or they get and you say, an 8-year-old kid did this? Well, of course not. Their parents did it. And that's what I found really upsetting. And it's a very bad idea to do that, because you're going to teach the kid a very bad lesson.
I agree with that. So we're both going to say it's better that they not do well and learn a lesson. By the way, the anonymous texter had the perfect compromise. To avoid the ethical problem of helping my kids with their homework, I have my AI girlfriend help them, which I think is what's happening in a lot of cases.
Somebody just said the Brookline school teachers are suddenly very suspicious about the 50-page report submitted by Margery's kids with the subject of secretariat.
Exactly.
I didn't go over the line. I don't think of my children. I just helped them with the grammar. You know why? Because I didn't teach them grammar in the vaulted Brookline.
Well, that's not
schools.
cheating. That's like helping them along kind of thing.
Yeah.
877-301-8970. I admit I've described this very poorly because I'm so upset about the chaos. I'm actually not that upset. I feel bad about it. But in any case, let's start with Elena in Framingham. You are first on the Cheating on the Homework Hour here on Boston Public Radio. Hey.
Hey, good morning.
And to you.
This is probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
My daughter was in late elementary school in Framingham.
Yeah.
And was in art class with the winner of the art project for the sustainability. And this kid said to my daughter that she was such a good artist. And my daughter said, but you just won the art contest. And the kid said, well, my mother did that. So we went to the principal, not because we wanted to get the kid into trouble, but it's a valuable learning. The school had a lot of first-generation Americans, whatever.
Oh, you're breaking up. The first half of the story that you got to the conclusion of was fabulous. I'm sorry we lost you. Elena, that was great. Thank you for making the call. 877-301-8970. By the way, what if you don't believe in homework? I know what the answer to the question is, but there's a school of thought, I don't mean that as a pun, that you shouldn't give kids of a certain young age homework. And if they do, does that excuse?
One of these stories is about, it's Halloween. You're doing Dr. Seuss. They talk about a Dr. Seuss project where your kid's supposed to dress up like a character from Dr. Seuss. And, that's very stressful for the parents. If you're not an artistic person, this poor woman was overwhelmed because she didn't know how to do something like that. Or you're supposed to send in a collection of 100 things for the 100th day of school, and the kid's 4 years old. I mean, the kid's not going to do that. You're going to end up doing it and sending it in for the kid. So I think you don't want to go overdo it. I mean, the mother that was the Dr. Seuss thing, she was supposed to go in. What was she supposed to be? She was supposed to be the one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, a red fish person. And she didn't know how to do it. She wasn't artistic.
Oh.
So she just taped she went into the teacher, and the teacher said, just take a picture of a red fish, get a picture of a red fish and tape it to her shirt. That's how you can be the red fish person. But I think you can get overwhelmed by that if you're not creative. And 4 and 5-year-old kids really shouldn't have homework, I don't think, or 6-year-old kids.
How good were you at pointing at the science project that Susie Pepper did?
I don't remember. I was so scared. I just remember I was right there. Mr. Dubois, I was afraid.
Mr. Dubois?
Mr. Dubois. He was my teacher. Yeah, she said, put it here. I said, okay. I mean,
he was not the living fossil.
No, that was Miss Crispo.
Miss Crispo was the living fossil. Okay. Sorry. Emma. It's a Durfee High School.
Durfee High School.
Let's go to Emma in Arlington. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi. So when I was 15, I was getting all C's in my English class, which was not like me. My dad said, oh, you're being lazy. You're not doing enough research on your paper. So he just wrote one of my papers for me. And I was like, Dad, you don't understand. This teacher, he's out to get me. And my dad was like, okay. And when I got the paper back that my dad wrote, I got a D, which I've never got. And my dad said, you know what? This teacher, he's stupid. He's sexist. He's out to get you.
That is a fabulous story. Emma, thanks for sharing it. That is a great one.
Listen to this.
That is great.
From Jessica in Dedham. Maybe she was in school in Brookline. She said, Margery might be remembering my exact replica of the Coliseum that our family architect friend helped me make in 3rd grade.
Is that what you're talking about?
I don't know. Jessica, it might have been the Coliseum. It was some incredible thing. I thought it was a bridge. Maybe it was someone had a bridge and somebody had a Coliseum. But, that's a really great point. Okay, listen to this. Margery, you shouldn't automatically assume the parents did the work. I won the reading contest in first grade. Everyone called me a cheater and a liar. I was devastated. I'm now 52, and I still haven't gotten over it.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's a horrible
thing. That is horrible. I guess you were really smart, whoever just sent that in. Beaver from Fort Village. Hi, Beaver.
Hello, Beaver.
Hi, guys. I got a good story for you.
We're ready.
I didn't have to cheat school because I'm a very good student.
Oh, good.
But I had this friend in high school back in the 70s. You know, Jim probably remembers back in the olden days. There was a Timex watch that had a little scroll calendar in it that was a Torah, a little miniature Torah. And my friend put all of his crib notes on a tiny little piece of paper and rolled it up inside of that thing and cheated his way to an A.
That's a beautiful story.
Oh, my God.
That is such a lovely tale.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stories, Beaver, about the girlfriend helping the kind of not-so-swift boyfriend with her with the schoolwork. You know, they pass notes to the boyfriend. And
you never do that with a football player?
No, never did that.
Was your football player a boyfriend, a smart boyfriend in high school?
Yeah, he was smart.
He was, in addition to being a football star.
That's right.
Beaver, you were going to say something else? I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
That's it. Thank you.
Beaver, that was a good story. Thank you for sharing it. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970. By the way, this is not our topic, but did you ever cheat?
In school?
Yeah. You're not the type.
I don't think so. Did you ever cheat?
What?
Did you ever cheat?
One of the worst. This is a horrible story, too. Why did I invite this? When I was in high school, it's one thing if you cheat when you're young. I had a book report due, and I hadn't read the book. So I hadn't read a book. You were allowed to pick your own book. So I wrote a book report about a non-existent book. So the good news was I got caught, by the way.
You did?
It was hard. I was like totally humiliated. It was like in 10th grade. But it was a wonderful report on a particular thing. But the thing was not a book because the book didn't exist.
Well, this brings up a good question.
I actually feel horrible about that. I don't know why I mentioned that. Yeah.
Did they give you a D?
They gave me a D, yeah. They didn't even give me an F. They gave me a D.
Did you tell your mother?
They had my mother have to come in, which was even worse than the crime itself. Yeah.
That was before you stole the stuff from the Wawa supermarket.
I didn't steal anything from the Wawa supermarket.
It was a one-man crime spree. In the high school, geez,
that was actually in college when I was the assistant manager of the Wawa supermarket. And by the way, I didn't steal anything.
Continued over many years.
I didn't steal anything from the Wawa supermarket.
You know what's an interesting question? Is it cheating to use the crib notes that people used to buy instead of reading the books, instead of reading the entire
obviously it
Great
is.
Expectations? You just read
the Cliff Notes.
So I guess I did because I read Cliff Notes from time to time.
Everybody who didn't read.
Well, that's cheating.
Well, that is of course cheating. Okay. Don't you think it's cheating?
Well, I guess a degree.
You didn't read the book, did you?
I think.
Yes or no? Did you read the book?
Part of the book.
Well, did you read the book?
Not the whole thing.
Okay, fine.
So I did that.
This is rather embarrassing for both of us.
It is very embarrassing.
I did win the science fair, though, that year.
That was when the superintendent did the science project for you,
I didn't say he
Jim.
did the whole project.
Okay.
I carried it to school.
Sabrina from
You know what
Bolton.
the worst thing was? I can't believe I'm getting into this.
Carried it to school.
Let me tell you what it was. This is really
heavy.
This is so. It was a camera.
A camera.
A wooden camera.
You made a camera.
And when I win this,
little Edwin Bland
I
here.
had forgotten this till this second. When I won the award, the science teacher, because I was not very good in science, so I think she was fairly surprised. You know what she said? She asked me to do. I don't think I ever told you this story. She asked me to use the camera that I had won the award with to take a picture of all the other finalists. And you know what the problem was? I had no idea how to use the camera.
Use the camera.
Oh, my God.
Didn't she think that was suspicious, Jim?
I think I said I had to go to the bathroom. It's the only thing. I don't remember what happened, but that's all true.
But that was like when I was in the science practice. Mr. Dubois kept asking questions of me and Susan, and only Susan could answer the questions.
You know what I was just going to say? I was going to say it scared me straight, which it did until I made up the book. But that was like 5 years later.
Stole from the Wawa supermarket.
I did not steal from the Wawa supermarket.
Okay.
I defended my coworkers who were accused of stealing.
Oh, okay.
Sabrina, you're in Bolton. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi. How are you both?
We're excellent. Thank you.
Oh, love to hear it.
Good.
So, I grew up in Vermont, so shout out to all the transplants here in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And I used to use my pipeline of friends who were upperclassmen who would save their old binders full of quizzes and tests and pass them down from class to class And a few of the teachers never changed their questions or even reordered the questions. So we would pass them around and prep before every quiz and test and get by that one.
By the way, I had something where I had a similar thing where the teacher asked the exact same questions every year, and I had a similar kind of sin as the one you admitted to.
We're up to like 6 geniuses now.
Well, Sabrina did it too, so I don't feel so bad. Sabrina, thanks for the call. You know what's interesting? We had even one person call to say they cheated on behalf of their kids, or that they cheated for their kids. Nobody so far.
Not that I.
Well, you're here. You're listening to the callers.
Where'd the person with the glasses go? Oh my God, I gotta find this.
Oh, we got one.
Here it is. Kid next to me in grade school had a friend write the answers to the test on the inside of his glasses frame. It was a satisfying moment when the kid took his glasses off during the test, but then realized he couldn't read the answers without his glasses. Oh my God.
That is a great one.
That's a great one.
Let's go to Tricia in Norwood.
Hi, Tricia.
What are you going to admit to, Tricia?
Hi, I used to write everybody's papers all through college on the weekends, and it was a pain, and I didn't charge them, and I learned a lot, so it was a pain, but I always knew I'd learn a lot. Not a single prof ever suspected. And we're talking Stonehill, Northeastern, SMU. I mean, all of these really good colleges, not a single, even a student who's getting a D shows up with an A grade paper and nobody suspected.
Okay, Tricia, what are you, a saint? You did this for your friends and for free? You spent the whole weekend in the library?
Back in the day I'm a boomer. Back in the day, we all stuck together. If you remember that. Nowadays, kids don't do that. I say that to my granddaughter all the time. But I did that once in my all-girl Catholic school, once. And the nun was on us like a bad rash. I never did it again in high school. But I did it all the time in college. I learned a lot. It was like a free education.
But was that before you go? So are you arguing that one of the reasons you were doing it is because you learned in the process? There had to be more to this, no?
No. The one and only reason I did it was for my friends because we stuck together back then.
You're incredible.
And if somebody wasn't good at a certain subject, and I was all math and science, so I really didn't take humanities because I thought it was stupid. So that was usually what it was. So I actually learned something every time I wrote.
And what did they do for you? What did they do for you?
Well, they were good friends to me in other ways. We all,
Tricia, you're a good person.
Internet, all the stuff we did a lot of crazy stuff, and bailed each other out and helped each other with things. There were a lot of things. I can't say them all. Well, I'm sure you guys did them too.
Tricia, that's great. You sound like a good soul.
Okay.
Thank you for the call.
I just had someone text me say that Mr. Dubois was their favorite teacher at Durfee. They also went to Durfee, apparently.
Really?
Listen to this one. This is another Catholic school story.
Durfee's Fall Rivers High School, by the way, public high school.
Not a cheating story, but was taking an exam in 3rd grade in Catholic school, dropped my pencil. The nun thought I was cheating, came, slapped me, tore up my exam, and I had to repeat 3rd grade. Oh. That's terrible.
That is terrible.
Oh,
so
man.
sad.
Some of those nuns can be really nasty. Janice and Haverhill, what do you think? Jackie and Haverhill. Hi, Jackie.
Hello, Jackie. Jackie.
Jackie there?
Oh, this one's a good one. I hope we didn't lose you, Jackie. Did we lose you? Let's put Jackie on hold for a second, and we'll come back to her in just a couple minutes ago. Here's an anonymous texter. I did exactly the same thing as Jim. By the way, the number is 877-301-8970. I had not done the reading of a book. I did not do the book report until the morning that was due when I wrote a report on a book. Oh, my God, on a book that didn't exist. Made up an author, so did I. Wrote a real publishing house, I think I did too. And my 7th grade teacher, Miss Pettipit, gave me a look when she gave it back to me, but she didn't say anything. I got an A.
Now, let me
ask
you a question. Why you didn't just write a book report in a book you'd already read instead of making up an imaginary
Well, that makes an assumption that I think was inaccurate.
You were not reading many books?
I was not reading many books at that particular moment.
All right, not back in the day. Okay.
By the way, when you have a horrible, I know this is going to sound terribly unnecessary to say, but I'll say it anyway. When you have a horrible experience like that 52-year-old who said he's still upset about his 1st grade experience, when I started telling the story, Mr. Scherzer was my high school. I just remembered my 10th grade teacher who caught me when I wrote the book report about the book that didn't exist. I still have like a physical feeling when I tell the story about how upset I was when I got caught.
It's horrible.
Yeah. I did admit when was that worth anything when you admit that? I guess what am I going to do?
No, I think it's important to say I
Yeah.
did it. And then did your mother not make you a salami sandwich that night or whatever she made?
She took
you
one night off. I only had we skipped salami one night. She gave me bologna and cheese on rye instead. Okay, Jackie in Haverhill is back. Hi, Jackie. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I had a boyfriend from the Middle East. This isn't about young students. This
Do
is
whatever you want.
college
Go ahead.
age.
It's okay.
Okay, boyfriend from Middle East, taking ESL in a little college in the Washington, D.C. area. He had to write an essay on what's a wedding like in your country. And so he put heavy pressure on me to help him. I was happy to help. But then it turned out that, no, I had to write the whole thing. And then there was no time for me to back out because the thing was due. So I described the wedding with his input and then basically wrote the whole thing for him. And I tried to make it like a foreigner who's learning English at his level. And I didn't know what I was doing. So and then he wrote it out on his own. And this was a long time ago. And he submitted it. And the teacher, of course, was smart, and he saw that the boyfriend did not write it, and he marked off every single tiny little error that I made, or major error, what do I know, and, got a horrible, devastating, scathing, remarks and everything. And that cured him, though. That cured him of doing that to me. I was fit to be tied.
Where's the boyfriend
one
now?
Of the notches. Oh, he he went back to his country, and he married somebody that he was cheating on with.
Oh, that's heartwarming.
When he was with me.
That is so beautiful.
And this thing was one of the notches. I had like, oh, that's terrible. Maybe I should rethink this. Every time he did something horrible, I put a notch, and finally there were too many notches.
Jackie, that's a good story, but actually a good ending.
Listen,
Jackie, thank you for the call. Can I read? You going to read that one?
Yeah, I like another good one, too. Okay, this is the anonymous texter number 1. I had an assignment to write a paper about the history of photography and tintypes and daguerreotypes.
I never know how to pronounce that word.
It was so good, it won an award, and my high school wanted to enter it into a larger contest. We decided not to submit to either award because my mom wrote it. Wow, that's a good one.
Wow.
Listen to this one. Tom from the North End. I never cheated, but something worse. I couldn't fake anything. When I was 13, I was in a golfing contest in Haverhill, sponsored by the Elms Club. I shot 180 for 18 holes, which is really bad. I was so embarrassed, but I turned in my scorecard anyway. My score was listed among all the other scores by the Haverhill Gazette. And I never played a round of golf again. Oh, Tom.
Well, the moral of that story is not to be honest, isn't it? I mean, that's horrible.
Well, that's what he's saying. He was honest. He turned in his scorecard. I mean, that's like 10 shots minimum for every hole, right? That's not too good.
We only have a couple minutes left, and Jared is not with us today. So can I spend 2 minutes to preview something we're going to talk about next week, and which we've talked about in the past? We've had Bruce Marks on, who runs NACA, that fabulous housing organization, and he's talked about a story that we talked about for legislative reasons, Blue Hub. Blue Hub was this lender that was the only company, thanks to the legislature and governor, the only company entity in Massachusetts that has an exemption from consumer protection laws. Andrea Campbell was very critical of it when we asked her about it later. Well, there's been a trial going on for 5 years, or a litigation going on for 5 years, and the judge ruled yesterday mostly against Blue Hub, saying they engaged in predatory lending. They didn't fully advise the lendees, the people who borrowed the money, about what the terms of this lending was. And what they do is, when you're about to be foreclosed upon, they buy the house from the bank, they sell it back to you, which sounds great, except they do these things that we'd never heard about before, these shared appreciation mortgages, which means when you either refinance or sell, they get a piece of the action. The plaintiff said, we were never told about this ballooning thing, and the court determined they hadn't. This is a really big deal, both politically and legally. So we will have next week Bruce Marks, who's the head of NACA. They helped lead this suit with one of the plaintiffs, who was one of the people who borrowed the money that was the victim of predatory lending. And we'll also yet again invite Elise Cherry, who runs Blue Hub, to join us. We've invited her in the past. In all fairness to her, she once agreed, but Margery wasn't there that day. We put it off. And I should say, the reason she wouldn't come on, Margery, is because I allegedly had bias towards Bruce Marks and the homeowners. And the reason I had bias, Ms. Cherry, is because Blue Hub is a predatory lender, as determined by the court. So we will hopefully have all three of them next week.
Okay, on a sad note, Jim.
What happened?
There's another sad note. I guess I'm getting a lot of texts from people who also had Mr. Dubois.
Oh, what happened? At Durfee?
Well, I'm concerned now that I may
Is he dead?
No, I don't know, but I may lose my. People may throw me off the Alumni Association for confessing.
Why? Because you didn't really cheat on the thing.
Well,
you just used the pointer.
I didn't do my due diligence on my science project. Oh, well, too late now.
By the way, we just got a text from Susie Pepper, who says she's having dinner tonight with Harriet Heinemann. Is that okay? We'll get report back on that tomorrow. Okay, that's it. We're done.
Want to hear a quick one?
Quick.
I learned long after she graduated high school, my daughter and her friends used to each read one book of their summer reading list, and then they'd all share the book reports with each other.
That's great, actually. That's brilliant. Okay, we're done.
Very, very clever. Okay, thank you very much for tuning in to another edition of Boston Public Radio. We usually would be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow.
Not tomorrow.
But we're not going to be there because we have technical difficulties. Where's the last page of my script? I may not have the last page of my script.
Okay, what Margery would like to say is keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast.
That's right.
Or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Why don't you take it from there, Margery?
Tomorrow, not at the library, will be Senator Elizabeth Warren. She'll be with us at 11 here in Brighton, as well as Boston mayoral candidate. He'll be here at noon. Harvard National Security.
You didn't say who he was.
Josh Kraft.
Josh Kraft,
yes. Yeah, he's running for mayor. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Harvard National Security expert Juliette Kayyem and Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung. They'll all be here in Brighton. Our apologies again. We want to thank our crew who got us all here safely today. And one of them found my phone, which is a very good thing.
That's great.
Zoe Matthews, Aiden Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer, John the Claw Parker. Bill Biaccitelli is sitting in today for John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. We want to thank to our staff down at the Boston Public Library, Maddie Geyer, Bradley Lewis, Juan Jose Cadena, who's got my phone. Thanks to our hosts at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. The Culture Show starring Jared Bowen follows us immediately after we're done.
So it was really a smooth reuniting of you and me, our first day back together, would you not say?
Racing down here to get from downtown to here.
By the way, not only are we not going to be at the library tomorrow for technical reasons, we won't be there Friday because we're taking our final vacation in the summer.
You know
Tuesday we return to the library and to 5-day week, well that week, 4 days, but 5-day week live programming.
Remember the text I just read from the guy that had the 180 score in 18 holes of golf and he was honest enough to turn in his score? A texter just pointed out, had he cheated at golf that day, he could have been president of the United States.
Oh, bum. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Rockland Trust Bank, helping foster healthy relationships with money by providing education and resources to the community, one neighborhood at a time. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC. Nova explores the revolutionary engineering behind Paris's iconic landmark, which ushered in a new age of global construction that reached for the skies. Watch Building the Eiffel Tower tomorrow at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at